welcome. It is 7:30 in the evening in India and we are back again with a spotlight on G20. It was the second day of the G20 Health Working Group meeting in Thiruvananthapuram. Main sessions have concluded in Kerala, but events will continue on the sidelines tomorrow. The day started today for G20 delegates with morning yoga on the picturesque Kopalam beach in God's own country. There was focus on medical value tourism, value-based healthcare and traditional medicine too. On India at G20 today, we ask, how is India promoting holistic healthcare as G20 president? I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. First up, the top stories. G20 delegates start the second day in Thiruvananthapuram with morning yoga by the beautiful Kovalam beach. Under India's G20 presidency, key focus is on promoting holistic health and amalgamation of traditional systems of medicine and healthcare service delivery. G20 delegates deliberate on using digital health innovations and solutions for universal health coverage and improving healthcare service delivery. WHO's Director of Digital Health and Innovation says India has demonstrated that foundational investments can enable transformation into technologically mature systems, of which Aadhaar is an example. Union Minister of State for Health Dr. Bharti Praveen Pawar inaugurates a side event on medical value travel, says policy imperative to promote medical value travel needs to gain momentum, urges stakeholders to make a unique blueprint for the future of medical value travel through effective collaborations. And let's straight go across for perspective to Vaidya Rajesh Kotecha. He is a Union Secretary. Ayush Ministry is joining us directly from Thiruvananthapuram, the capital of Kerala, where the G20 Health Working Group meeting is underway. Such a pleasure to have you, Vaidya Kotecha ji, on India at G20. I was going through the Bali Declaration and I could find no mention there of either yoga or Ayush. So that brings me to the question, is promotive and preventive healthcare going to be India's unique contribution as G20 president?
Actually, this
Right, Vaidya Kotecha, we will...
you can see that after this, today immediately in the afternoon,
No, we cannot hear you clearly, sir. Maybe we can attempt a reconnection in a bit. Before that,
okay.
Yeah, right. Can we attempt to reconnect with Secretary? Okay, sir, let's try this again. I was asking you if this is going to be India's unique contribution as G20 president, emphasis on promotive and preventive healthcare.
Yes, actually, this is the one of the important thing that India is trying to get into the G20. That traditional medicine, wellness, holistic health, One Health is on the forefront during these discussions. And as a matter of fact, there is a side event of medical value travel where Ayush industries are participating in a very big manner. And these G20 delegates are visiting the Somathiram resort of Ayurveda. Is a very big resort in Kerala, just to showcase the Ayurveda tourism, Ayurveda medical value travel, how much is possible in our country.
So what were the impressions that the G20 delegates had? They were participating in morning yoga session and there was emphasis on medical value travel as well. They had gone to a PM Jan Aushadhi center as well in Thiruvananthapuram. So what are their impressions of how India is taking forward promotive and preventive healthcare?
Actually, this is really interesting that you may see that a lot of delegates has come for the yoga session. They were very enthusiastic and they have well received it. They stayed for almost more than an hour for the yoga session. And then this showcasing of India's health system in integrative care, our vaccine development and our health system per se all over the country and in Kerala, everything was showcased well and they were highly appreciative about India's strength. particularly in the area of integrative medicine and Ayush and traditional medicine and their strength and wellness. All those things are appreciated, and in One Health perspective, there is a discussion pending and it is going on.
And for the benefit of the viewers, can you tell us about how effective Ayush products and services have been in the fight against COVID-19? What is the evidentiary basis of the way Ayush products were used to combat COVID-19?
Actually, you can through this platform, I'm happy to share that Ayush Ministry and with the collaboration of lot of institutions like ICMR, DBT, lot of medical colleges, we were able to conduct more than 150 studies, and there were two repurposed medicines and lot of preventive aspects have been identified, and then evidence has been generated. So through this, the Ayush Ministry and through Ayush modalities, were able to help the people in a very big manner, working with neck to neck with the Health Ministry. We were able to penetrate through the states, and states has also contributed a lot. There is a document Niti Aayog has prepared about the integration of Ayush during COVID-19, and it is a wonderful benchmark document. Different states have contributed a lot into the Ayush intervention, and people are benefited through these interventions. And we all know that Ayush has helped in COVID crisis in a very big manner.
Right, and we are aware that the WHO and India are together setting up a global center for traditional medicine in Jamnagar,
Yes.
Gujarat. It's the first ever such center, and India has been
Yes.
chosen for that, given the kind of reputation that India has
Yes.
as a country that has been practicing traditional medicine for millennia. Are
And I know-
G20 nations on board on something like this as well?
Actually, I want to add one very important information that I want to share is that as a parallel event in August, when health ministers for this health track are coming from all G20 countries and participating countries in Gandhinagar, Gujarat, with the help of WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine and Government of India, Ministry of Ayush, together we are organizing a global event of traditional medicine under GCTM. So it will be a parallel event where we are envisaging that all these health ministers will participate and then talk about traditional medicine, where WHO Director General is also scheduled to come. So we are trying that traditional medicine is discussed at length in these countries and being implemented in a very big manner into commerce, into research, into practice and evidence generation and education. Everywhere it is implemented. That is what we are envisaging.
Right. We are aware that these health working group meetings, they feed into the ministerial declaration, and then they feed into the New Delhi declaration or the G20
Yes.
country declaration.
Yes, yes.
What are the deliverables that we are looking at which should, as per India, find its way into the ministerial declaration and finally into the New Delhi declaration in terms of Ayush?
We are working with the health ministry because they are the nodal ministry. So we have discussed this at length, and we are trying that in the health minister declaration, subsequently the leaders declaration, the specific area of traditional medicine like integrative care, forum for traditional medicine at G20, all those things are achieved.
Okay. And beyond that, how are you looking at integration with modern medicine? Are we also Are we also looking at traditional medicine of various countries in a collaborative platform so as to ensure that benefits of traditional medicine across countries reach a wider cross section of people around the world?
That is what is the purpose. That is why Government of India is helping WHO to have this event of global event of traditional medicine, where we will generate this ecosystem of generating evidence, talking about each other's traditional medicine, and getting into mainstream in an integrative manner. Integrative manner means that whatever is good in these traditional medicines should be translated into the public health delivery system, which is happening in India and in lot of other countries. For example, we have invited one expert from Germany for this tomorrow's medical will travel event, and she is representing a very big neurology hospital in one of the city of Germany, where they are doing integrative care for the neurological patients like Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis and all those neurodegenerative disorder, they are using Ayurveda, yoga, and modern medicine together to help the people, the patient. So that type of education is happening in other countries also. So what we are trying to do is that under this platform, under India's G20 presidency, these evidences, these practices are translated at very large scale into these countries, and their people are benefited at large.
Right, and we heard from the health minister ahead of the health working group meeting that India will soon be launching a Heal in India initiative, and there's so much focus today on medical value travel and tourism as well. So is there going to be synergy between the two?
There is a lot of synergy. I want to cite this example that this evening, when Honorable Minister of State Bharti have launched this medical travel side event, there is a big showcase of both these industries together. Like big hospital chains, they are there in this, they showcase in an expo, and then Ayush industries also there. They are neck to neck. They are working together, and there is a good showcase of this synergy of thoughts and practices into this medical value travel event at G20 presidency under health tech.
And there is also focus on value-based healthcare. What is India's vision for it as G20 president?
Actually, value-based healthcare is very important component. The India's argument or India's message or saying is that we should all work together as a one health and one family, and for the benefit of the people, if we can offer some affordable solution to the patients who have to wait a lot in different countries for small procedures or surgeries or small medical things, we should create an ecosystem under this presidency or in all these countries that patients gets benefited and they get affordable solution for their care, and then through this we want to achieve universal health coverage. This is wonderful modality that we work together and achieve this.
Right. Towards the end, I want to ask you that India has a vision for preventive and promotive health care to achieve universal health coverage. But are the other G20 countries on board? Also, what is the view of the low and middle income countries as India wants to promote the voice of the global south at G20? Are they all on board? Is there broadly consensus on what India has envisioned?
Mono, it is too early because the discussion has just started yesterday. This is first meeting. There are such 4 meetings are being visualized before the health minister's declaration coming. So it is too early for me to comment on it. I think I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of other countries, right. But I'm sure that there is a lot of curiosity and consensus is building, and we will see when these health minister's declarations come in for the leaders' declaration input, and I'm sure that it will come as a consensus.
So positive signals so far. Thank you so much, Vaidya Rajesh Katocha, for joining us from Thiruvananthapuram and for sharing your perspective on the day 2 of the Health Working Group meeting of G20 in Thiruvananthapuram. The spotlight on the second day of the G20 Health Working Group meeting in Thiruvananthapuram was on yoga, digital health and medical value tourism. Here's a snapshot of how the day went by.
The day 2 of G20 delegates in Thiruvananthapuram started with a relaxing yoga session. G20 delegates performed yoga by the scenic Kovalam beach. Under India's G20 presidency, a key focus area is promoting holistic health, an amalgamation of traditional systems of medicine in healthcare service delivery.
I enjoyed it very much. Even I'm not so flexible, so it was relaxing but also demanding.
I really enjoyed the experience of yoga. I haven't done it for a long time.
It was such a relaxing way to start the morning. Beautiful and just really well paced. And I love that it was both the yoga and the breathing. So ready for another long day of meetings now.
The morning yoga session was followed by deliberations on how digital health innovations and solutions can aid universal health coverage and improve healthcare service delivery. The delegates underscored the need for a robust strategy that integrates financial, organizational, human and technological resources to guide national or regional digital health initiatives.
India is an incredible country in terms of manufacturing, in terms of digital health, in terms of technology.
I think this is an opportunity for Commonwealth and with India's leadership to progress on multiple fronts on innovation and technology to solve today's problems, to help us achieve sustainable and inclusive development.
A side event on medical value travel was inaugurated by Union Minister of State for Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Bharti Praveen Pawar.
We also have something unique in India, our culture of traditional medicines like Ayurveda and Unani. This caters to an important content of preventive and promotive aspect of healthcare besides curative health services. India envisions to accelerate the efforts towards health system transformation, increasing the pace of implementation of value-based healthcare and achieving the goal of universal health coverage across the world. With the G20 Indian presidency, the multilateral collaborations between the countries facilitated by knowledge sharing leading to formulation of effective policies aiding accessible, affordable and quality healthcare to citizens across the world.
The event featured panel discussions on holistic well-being through integrated healthcare, building resilient and sustainable medical travel and strengthening such travel through partnerships. G20 delegates toured KIMS Health Hospital as part of medical value travel. With inputs from Aisha Khanam and Nitendra Singh from Thiruvananthapuram, Bureau Report, DD India.
The delegates also got an opportunity to experience Kerala's art and culture at an art and crafts village. Speaking to DD India, Dr. Alain Labrique, Director of Digital Health and Innovation at WHO, said that India has shown that foundational investments can enable transformation into technologically mature systems, of which Aadhaar is an example. He called for a global shift from a pilot or project approach to an ecosystem framework to build a solid foundation for global health systems digitally. Listen in.
India 5 years ago is very different to India today. And the same can be said for countries across the globe in the global south. And so we have to think about where we are today, but also build solutions for tomorrow. And keep in mind that everyone should benefit from this technology revolution. So success is built on trust. And trust means that there is a background of policy, of legislation that protects the privacy and security and builds the trust of individuals to use these systems. So I think that's the foundational place where I would like to see India shining as a beacon to other countries to learn from. What are those elements of legislation and policy that need to be in place for digital success to be possible?
DD India correspondent Aisha Khanam also spoke to former Chief Scientist of WHO, Soumya Swaminathan, on the lessons that the world must learn from the COVID-19 pandemic in order to build a robust and fairer global health architecture. Listen in.
So how do you analyze this entire health infrastructure, health structure across the globe?
Globally, we saw that, the investments in primary healthcare and public health were very important. The second lesson, I think, is the importance of investing in science and research and development for countries, because we saw that countries which had a strong base, they actually did much better. I think the third lesson was that the global connections, collaborations and working together, which is very nicely encapsulated by India's theme for the G20, which is Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam.
Change is also being talked about, that is digital health, strengthening the health infrastructure digitally.
Technology is going to play a very important role, but we cannot let technology dominate us. We have to be in control. The government particularly needs to really have a very strong governance and stewardship, which is exactly what India has done in terms of establishing the India Stack and establishing the National Digital Health Mission and Blueprint.
The India correspondent Aisha Khanam spoke to Dr. Y.K. Gupta, an expert on antimicrobial resistance, a key imponderable under the health track. Listen in.
So much of concern that there is no antibiotic left which is effective, and the cause is A, misuse or overuse of antibiotics, B, the non-availability of effective antibiotic against those organisms which have become resistant, C, because this is a concern not only for human being but for the animal, for the environment as well. Therefore, there are few important things which are concerns. A is the creating an awareness among the physician, public and the industry as well, and the diagnostic, that what is the relevance of rational prescription or rational medication. Avoid the antimicrobial agents where it is not required. Give the antimicrobial agent with justification where it is required in the right dose for right duration.
The India correspondent Aisha Khanam also spoke to healthcare personnel manning a medical room equipped with first aid for the G20 delegates at the venue of the first health working group meeting in Thiruvananthapuram. Take a listen.
Basically a first aid unit, and whatever things come under the umbrella of first aid we can manage here, and we have all medicines, all setups. Both of us are monitoring the team. There are 5 doctors, then 3 nursing staff and 3 nursing assistants are there. Nobody is symptomatic, nobody has come for screening for COVID.
And we now leave you with a cultural extravaganza that depicted traditional dance forms and art of Kerala and left G20 delegates enthralled in Thiruvananthapuram. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.
On our Republic Day, as India comes together in all its beauty, diversity and strength to celebrate with pride, joy and reverence. Come, join us for the live telecast as the tricolour flutters in our hearts, homes and hopes on the 26th of January, only on Doordarshan.
इतनी जल्दी पैसे डबल
ओ जमा करोगे तो फिर भुगतोगे क्या लो ऐसी लुभाने वाली स्कीम में पैसे जमा करना यानी धोखे की संभावना इसलिए पहले पूरी जांच उसके बाद पैसे जमा नहीं तो आपके पैसे हो जाएंगे आरबीआई कहता है
जानकार बनिए सतर्क रहिए
सांसों में छिपा है ये पुरखों की कृपा है ये दिखलाएगा रास्ता अथ योगा निशासनम दुनिया में प्रसिद्ध जो अपने आप सिद्ध जो रखना इस पे आस था योगारंभ हो योगारंभ हो योगारंभ हो योगारंभ हो
विश्व को भेंट दी हमने ये योग है योगारंभ हो योगारंभ हो
जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है
जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है अथ योगानुशासनम
बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृत दुष्कृते तस्मात् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम् योगः कर्मसु कौशलम् अथ योगानुशासनम् अथ योगानुशासनम् भारत ने ही योग सिखाया जग में फैलाया
विश्व ने अपनाया नियंत्रण आया रोग पे
विश्व ने जैसे है पाया जो अधिकार ये अब आरोग्य पे है सब हो पाया योग से सदियों से रहा है ये सब ही ने कहा है ये
हरदम देगा आसरा अथ योगानुशासनम
अथ योगानुशासनम योगारंभ हो योगारंभ हो
ये शरीर और मन का संजोग है
योगारंभ हो योगारंभ हो जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है जो सुलझा दे जीवन को वो योग है योगारंभ हो आरंभ हो योगारंभ
Ever since Prime Minister Narendra Modi took over the reins of the country in 2014, what changes have you seen as far as the relationship and strengthening of ties between the two countries are concerned?
Where we can find that similarity and why not brotherhood between two people? Counting on Serbian friends all around the world, with India just being on the top of that list. Expectations from India, from our side, are very simple and very concrete. That India succeed the best advertisement for some values shared by our side.
We have fast-rising squash player Anahat Singh with us. Congratulations on winning under 15 British Open. First, tell me, how big is this for you?
It's one of the biggest international tournaments in the whole world, with players from all over the country and different levels. And I'm really excited to have just gotten the opportunity to play a part of it. And
Share with us in detail, how was that experience of competing in Commonwealth Games?
like Commonwealth, it's the biggest tournament you can play because squash is not in the Olympics. So it's something every squash player dreams of, and like that I got to do it at 14 and at such a young age. I couldn't believe it until I was actually there.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of India Ideas, the weekly show which is all about science and tech, innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm Gautam Roy. Today we're profiling a sector among Indian startups which holds a lot of promise for keeping India's flag flying higher internationally and giving it a lot of economic and strategic advantage in the days to come. It's a sector which has recently been opened up by the government to private players and has had a bumper year compared to all the years earlier in 2022. You've guessed it right, it's space tech. The space tech sector in India has seen a sea change since the government opened it up to participation by the private sector in 2020. It also launched In Space, which is meant for promoting, hand-holding and authorizing space activities by private players. 111 space tech startups are registered on the In Space digital platform so far. Space tech funding jumped 61.5% in 2022. It went from $108.52 plus million in 2022 compared to $67.2 million in 2021. Now, of the $245.35 million received by the sector in the last 7 years, $198.22 plus million has come post 2020. 2022 saw Indian space tech startup Skyroot Aerospace launch India's first private sector rocket successfully, putting a suborbital satellite in space, and it also saw another Indian space tech startup Agnikul Cosmos inaugurating India's first private launch pad and mission control center at the Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. But there are more milestones and successes in store. Let's dive into space tech emerging startup ecosystem star with our guests, and they are Anuj Sharma, co-founder Earth Analytics, which is focusing on measuring nature with remote sensing with geospatial and satellite data to come up with a remote sensing based algorithm to measure soil, to measure regenerative agriculture and to see how to catalyze conservation finance in it. We also have Srinath Ravichandran, founder and CEO Agnikul Cosmos, which is a very cool company which is democratizing access to space by designing, manufacturing, testing and launching orbital class rockets for microsatellites and nanosatellites. It has many feathers in its cap, including being the first space tech company in the world really to 3D print an entire rocket engine in a single piece, reducing the rocket's cost, complexity and assembly time from 12 weeks to less than 48 hours. And Anirudh A. Damani is also with us, managing partner, Earth Venture Fund, which has investments in 100+ startups across India, the US, Israel, Africa and the UK, including in Agnikul Cosmos. Welcome to you all. Anuj, let me start with you. Tell us a little bit more about Earth Analytics that, than I said in my intro really, and where exactly does it fit in to the space tech startup ecosystem?
Thanks a lot for inviting us here. So very excited to be part of it. So we are primarily incubated by IIT Kanpur, and we have a cutting-edge technology where we are using satellites to measure soil carbon. That's one very important initiative. So what we are doing is, if you look around, the space tech is involved in a big way. And there has also been a very amazing evolution in this whole sector, is that we can do lots of data analytics and lots of, I will say, inside, like you can measure by having a very precise knowledge of how the remote sensing could work. So it measures a very large amount of like ground data, and we can do an algorithm. And in that whole thing, one of the biggest beneficiaries so far, if you see, is the Indian farmers. So far, when we are talking about farming in India, lots of issues are there where we had been using pesticides and fertilizers, and that has been diminishing the soil quality. And that has been a like sign of worry for a very long time. Even like states like Punjab, where around 40% of the soil has been left unused, like because of the harmful effects of fertilizers and others. This kind of thing is requiring a regenerative agriculture practice shift towards things. And in that, there is another thing which is coming up because of the COP27 and other interventions, that you can get carbon credits if you can show that you are the farmer is going towards a regenerative agriculture practice. And that's where Earth Analytics comes in. And Earth Analytics kind of analyze the regenerative agriculture practice which is coming in, what is soil carbon increment which can come into the farmers, and democratizing the way the farmers can access carbon credits, which is one important thing. At the same time, you can also top it up with a conservation finance, because there are lots of institutions across the globe at the same time at a policymaker level in India as well, who will be incentivizing regenerative agriculture practices, organic fertilizers as well. And that's where we are coming.
Okay, sounds good. Now, Srinath, Agnikul Cosmos, it can safely be said, is a unique space tech startup worldwide. It now has a patent for the design and manufacturing of its 3D printed rocket engine. But can you plot for us how far you've come from the days you started knowing the sector was shuttered for private players till now, where the sky seems limitless to this point and you've just begun to explore it?
Sure, and thanks for having me here. I think the sector as a whole has come a very long way. I still remember 2017 when everyone, starting from vendors to customers to investors, used to ask the question, will India ever allow you to do a private launch as a business case, regularly doing launch after launch from India? From those questions today to the point where we ourselves are targeting our first launch very, very soon. So I think that is actually a really good place to be in. From Agnikul's standpoint, I think the team has done a lot of work in developing in-house technology for pretty much every system in the vehicle, starting from the engines to the tanks to the software to the navigation and control algorithms and so on. So I think from a very basic sense, I think we are very close to launch. I think that's the biggest place way to put it. I think the other part is, I think right now we are also at a point where we can actually start negotiating real business contracts with customers so that we can start looking at scaling, start looking at commercializing. It's gone beyond the point where we're looking at first launch. Now we're looking at the first 100 launches. I think that's where the industry is, and that's where we are also getting towards.
Super. Now, Anu, tell us about the time Agnikul came and pitched to you the first time around. What made you guys put your funds into a startup in a sector which wasn't even open to its participation at that time?
Gautam, thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
So the truth is, the first time Agnikul came to us was in 2019, and we'd actually passed on the investment. So, I mean, we loved the team. Our team had actually gone down and visited the IIT Madras facility where they were incubated, and we absolutely loved what they were doing. But unfortunately, we were very early in the deployment of our fund, and we didn't really have any kind of thesis to invest in something so deep tech and obviously in space at the time. But we loved the team, so while we said no, we just gave the team a simple task that, listen, we want to see you having a better revenue strategy, like how are you going to make money, and then we went to work and started looking around and thinking about this sector a little more seriously. Went to various investor conferences across the world. And a year later, we get a call again from Agnikul saying, listen, now we've got all these MOUs signed and we would love to have another conversation with you. So the energy of the team, and literally it was just the passion that these guys had that really convinced us that that we should be investing in this. I mean, this and to be honest, like I think for us it was the founders first and the idea second in this case. And hats off for them. They've literally endured a lot. I think 2017, as Srinath was talking about, till today, there's been a lot of heavy effort, a lot of heartache. I think if you go back to the first office, Srinath, there was 50 people in 1,000 square feet. And if you could not go through the office without every person telling you exactly what they were working for. So you could not do a 45-minute with Agnikul. You had to do at least a 3-hour meeting because every single person was going to tell you exactly what they were doing for the rocket. So it was just the passion of the team. And today, I mean, they deserve every second and every accolade that they've received.
Wonderful. Yes, they do indeed. Now, Anuj, the other interesting thing about your startup is the fact that you have a co-founder, Michael Anthony, who's based abroad in Zurich. Now, that's quite a unique long-distance relationship. Some would say distance doesn't really matter in this day and age anymore. COVID has changed everything, and now we're all into hybrid working. But are there times that you wish, this whatever you're undertaking could have been done better in person?
Yeah, one of the, I will say pluses and minuses in terms of larger thing. One of the blessings, if you ask today in the tech world, is we're talking about remote sensing, we are talking about space tech. So somebody in Zurich is actually a very big boon for us because we can harness the best of Europe very easily. And my co-founder has been one of the, like I will say, pioneer in terms of microinsurance segment across the world.
Okay.
So he set the microinsurance like practice in Alliance Group, which is a microinsurance, like it's an insurance group. At the same time, he had also worked in a very big way about harnessing how the SAR technology in remote sensing, which is the most cutting edge technology in the world, could be deployed on the ground. And this technology, where he was also having the experiences being used by NASA and ISRO. So we are talking about somebody who's like the kind of catalyst in the whole movement across the globe in terms of how you analyze data. And the other side, yes, there are challenges, but as you know, like in COVID, lots of differences happened because of the travel disruptions.
Mhm.
For us, the good part was we are a small, lean team. We were able to converge because of different tech tools as well. And we definitely meet once in a quarter. That's very important thing. And he enjoys India. He stayed in India at a stretch for 3 years. His kids love Indian food. They all celebrate basic things like the festivals of India, Diwali, Holi, and others. For them, it is a great thing.
Lovely.
So it brings lots of fond memories as well. And it is also important that if you see the space tech, you cannot do it with one dimension thing. You need to have diversity coming in. And that's what we are bringing. The European and Indian connect is a very powerful story in its own way.
Super, super. Now, Srinath, the global space market is estimated to be worth about $440 billion, and so far India has only grabbed 2 to 4% of it. Now, to what extent do you feel the situation can be changed in the ongoing decade?
So I think, before starting Agnikul itself, I had a chance to spend some time in the US. I actually came back from the US after my studies to, start Agnikul. And one thing I realized there is India has incredible credibility in terms of, what we've accomplished, even outside, right?
Yes, go ahead.
So, so what happens here is, that when the government has come out and actually started opening out the sector for people, you're going to see a lot more private initiatives come out of India. One thing that ISRO has done already very well, even before the new opening up the space sector, is that it has developed a very robust vendor ecosystem, right? There are a lot of people in the country who know how to build space tech hardware. And this is because ISRO has literally developed them, has trained them. Now with the government coming out and saying, hey, you know what, you can do independent, missions of space without involving Indian missions in the loop. It could be an Indian mission, but it need not be for ISRO, right? That is going to actually now allow a lot more people to come and do this, and a lot more business opportunities to also come towards it. So I think from my understanding, the government opening up the sector to all of us is going to really be the biggest step that India has taken towards increasing this percentage. I think the second one would be probably the entire community around, that support private companies, right? The investor ecosystem, the customer ecosystem, the vendor ecosystem. All of these people are also now starting to take us seriously. So I think a positive, a cycle has started, each one building towards the other in terms of actually pulling more business into India. So I think we have already, the ball is already rolling now. I think there's this gather more momentum now.
Great. Now, Anirudh, funding among India's space tech startups rocketed in 2022 as well by 61.5% according to a report. It went from $67.2 million in 2021 to $108.52 plus million in 2022, when funding winter was among the most talked about development in the startup ecosystem worldwide. Now, what does it look like for 2023 and beyond?
So obviously, we're talking about very small numbers to begin with, right?
Yes,
so I think
it's a small base.
Last year, 24 billion, 100 million went to SpaceX, less than 2%. But I think we're really just scratching the tip of the iceberg at this point, because the space tech economy in India is supposed to touch $13 billion by 2025. I believe we're really that it's going to be way more than that. And the reasons for that really is the way the government has really supported this sector. Srinath was just talking about that. The fact that the agencies of the government are also supporting the sector in a big way. The cost-benefit analysis, obviously, were much cheaper than a similar rocket that probably gets made in the Western world. And also the geopolitical climate has really been good for India overall. So I believe you may see a lot more funding this year. I think 100 million is a good base. But there is, now that you have startups like obviously Agnikul, you've got Skyroot and other startups that are now becoming mature. You're going to see a lot more funding coming this way. So, today an Agnikul can take 25, 30, 40, $50 million worth of funding, which is equal to probably 50% of what was raised last year. So I believe in that sense, there's a lot that's going to happen this year. I think we should be looking at least a $2 to $3 billion a year being invested into this sector in the next 2 to 3 years, once we have an infra player like Agnikul sending satellites to space.
Wonderful. Now, Anuj, with your open source algo, you're looking to benefit the agri-tech community worldwide and also aid conservation finance, like you mentioned. Now, is it possible for your tech to have use or applications in other fields as well?
Absolutely. So one of the important missions that we both have, so Michael and myself come from social sector in a big way. So I've been in impact investing social enterprise for the last 15 years. So one of the basic credence of us to start this tech company was to democratize the way tech should be there for larger community. So one of the use case, if I put like this, is in India, 90% of the farmers are small farm holders. We are talking about 1 acre and lesser. And if we want to build a technology, if it is only benefiting the elite farmers, like just 2% of farmers, it's not going to help us. The same way the global south, if I put like this, right from Amazon forest to Africa to, let's say, Indonesia, most of the people we are talking about who are getting affected with the climate change, the maximum are the poor people. And if I'm talking poor people, that means they have small land holding. The same way, if I talk about forest dwelling, I can talk about, let's say, some kind of a urban disruptions which are there, where, let's say, Joshimath, which is a very recent phenomena, where the subsidence is happening. All these things are super easy for people like us to measure and give it to the policymakers. And the reason is it needs to be preventive rather than it should be done afterwards. So, but for that, as I say, one of the good part is like, when people like us are kind of coming together and brainstorming with policymakers, there's lots of openness which is there. There's lots of collaborations happening. But for some reason, the collaboration is not happening with respect to similar kind of technology. So we don't want like 10 companies making same technology. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to open source it out. And one of our early, I will say, backers, GIZ, Germany, they also were of the same opinion that you should definitely do the open source thing. And one of the reasons we are doing it, because we want not competitors, we want collaborators together. And India, with a 1.4 billion population and still having a very huge base of population depending on agriculture and forest produces, we need to have a technology which is making sense for the public at large. Otherwise, we are just doing it for elite few city people.
True, true, true. Now, Srinath, the 3D printing tech that Agnikul has evolved for rocket engines, to what extent is it possible to scale it up? Where do you intend to take it in the years to come?
It's a very easily scalable tech if you know what exactly it meant to actually do these engines. So we are looking forward to actually going to making around 150 to 200 engines a year, right? So today we already have the capacity to do somewhere around 75 to 80 engines a year. That we got that facility set up for that in July of last year. We're calling that Agnikul's Rocket Factory. This is capable of churning out 8 engines a month roughly, right? So about 100 engines a year is already possible. And I think just with minimal investment and a little bit of more infrastructure, particularly the 3D printer and supporting, minor machinery, because our engines are 100% 3D printed in one shot, right? So very little machining as such, right? What comes out of a printer is a full engine. So I'm literally, I'll be able to scale if I just have more printers, that's it. So I'm easily looking at 250 to 300 engines probably by 2024 or so. And yeah, it's extremely scalable at this scale. Now, if you're looking at millions of engines, probably that's not where 3D printing is going to help you.
No,
But
in terms of size and carrying capacity and everything.
Oh, in terms of actually carrying capacity and size, it's only limited by the printer itself. And today we already have machines about 800 mm and 600 mm already in the market. When we started, 400 mm was already looked at, 400 mm height, I mean, right? That was already looked at as a very, very big part. And today we are seeing machines that are capable of doing 800, even 1 meter. And these are beyond R&D stage. They are just at the commercialization point. So the technology is scaling and the complexity of the parts that can be printed with them is also getting more and more, you can do more with less. So I think, yeah, it's a great technology for the aerospace sector itself. And I'm glad that the team has done a really good job in, harnessing it and pushing it to its full.
I'm sure we're all glad. Now, Anirudh, 2022 also showed a clear distinction between early and late stage funding of startups. Despite the funding winter, early stage startups fared much better than the late stage ones in 2022 compared to the previous year. Now, is that something we'll also see in the case of space tech startups in 2023, or can they take a different trajectory?
I think it's going to be a very interesting year, simply because, you know, when you have a delivery vehicle like Agnikul, right, which can print out these 150, 200 engines every year, it sparks up an entire ecosystem, right? Suddenly you've got a delivery vehicle, it's low cost, it can, you know, assemble in 48 hours, it can launch a rocket every week by the end of this year. It literally will encourage even more founders to start creating more startups, right? That they want to go and use space applications for multitude of reasons. So I think, therefore, Agnikul, once you have an Agnikul type play, it unlocks the ambitions of founders out there, which means there'll be more startups coming up, you know, saying, you know, we want to use a satellite to do X, Y, and Z. However, it also unlocks the wallet of the investor, right? Because you now finally have a launch vehicle,
yes,
and you don't have to go to other countries. You don't have to wait years to get the application into space. So I think it's a very pivotal year, 2023. I think now that, you know, you've got Skyroot and it's got at least its rocket into space, and Agnikul using its technology should be in space in the next month or so. Once these two are there, you've got the two infrastructure players you really need for this sector to take off. I think, like I said at the start of the program, we're literally scratching the surface. Right? This is a huge play. It's just unlocking.
Certainly. Now, Anuj, the other issue that I wanted to ask you about your venture is, how do you plan to monetize it, or is that something you're not looking at this moment at all, since you have funding from GIZ Germany?
So we definitely are looking for monetizing, not from the perspective of investors. We are trying to be sustainable ourselves. So as we are speaking, we are profitable, bootstrap profitable people. So it's not a bad idea, right? At the same time, we are open for some kind of investment related scenarios, but we would like to, first of all, get to a stage where we are able to experiment and also get our things completely right, because we are also aiming a global market. We are not just aiming for India. So the same solution which we are developing here, which is the most complex market in the world, we can easily replicate in Bangladesh, Nepal, or let's say Kenya, or let's say Latin America as well. So because there's a very good longevity in terms of the idea and also the use case that we have. So we would like to understand how this whole thing can pivot as well. At the same time, we are glad to inform that lots of great partners we are also converging. So we had a program where Gates Foundation and Tata Trust also partnered with us. At the same time, we have lots of government interventions which are also coming in, and kind of we are discussing it out. So the idea is, like, let's say at a policymaker level, if they are able to get a kind of a very simplistic dashboard where they can see how this whole remote, like I will say, geospatial data can help them in terms of, let's say, the crop pattern, or let's say there some kind of a disaster resilience kind of a signaling, or some kind of urban planning as well, they can actually take decisions in a much faster way, and which is much more accurate as well in that way.
Certainly. Certainly. Now, Srinath, this private sector in space tech in some other countries is miles ahead of ours with reusable rockets, space tourism and whatnot. Now, will we be able to give them a run for their money in these highly profitable fields as well sometime down the line, or will we stick with doing satellite launches knowing they won't be able to match our pricing?
No, I think we're definitely headed there. I think we have this rare combination of, a lot of indigenous tech, a meaningfully low cost in terms of technological cost incurred, and more importantly, a space agency that already has figured out all of the building blocks of what it needs to do any of these things, right? So, I mean, let it be, human missions, let it be space station, let it be a mission to a deep space planet. All of that, we know what to do in the country. It's not like new technology for us, and they're all getting realized very soon. So yes, I think we'll be there. Maybe it'll take us about a decade, but 2030 would be a very interesting point for Indian space tech. I think we will be a global leader, and probably, given the geographically strategic location of India, right, where we have really good access to space, just from a shoreline context, we could really become the global spaceport. I think we are headed there.
Great, great. And Srinath, there's a space policy in the pipeline as well, apart from the general budget. Now, what are your thoughts on these two key tools in the hands of the government looking in the space that you are?
See,
I think
Gautam, I'm a big believer that you've got to understand the intent of the government, right? And the government's intent is very, very clear, right? They want India to be at the center of the space race, right? So if you look at the way they've unlocked multiple, different agencies and different universities, and IIT Madras has literally cradled Agnikul to where it is today. I think we owe them a huge debt of gratitude for getting Agnikul to where it is today. Secondly, the way ISRO was privatized, was allowed to use private to be used for private launches. I think that again it signifies the intent of the government, right? They really want this high-tech technology to come to India. They want satellites from different countries to come to India. They want India to be at the middle of the space race. But let's not forget, our Prime Minister is the biggest cheerleader for the space tech industry, right? He's talked about it in Man Ki Baat. He talks about India's space tech program, in his foreign speeches. It makes a huge difference. It gives a lot of confidence to investors like us, but it also gives a huge boost to founders like, Anuj and Srinath, who are out there, slogging it out every day, that they have the Prime Minister's backing, that he's going to make sure he's going to do whatever it takes to get them in the middle, in the center of the space race. So I think we've got a fantastic confluence of factors. We're extremely excited about what the future holds for the Indian space program.
Yes, all of us are, in fact, and we're watching this space very closely and with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of hope and positivity. Thanks a lot for joining us. And of course, Srinath, I'll ask you about the space policy as and when it comes in as well. So we'll be talking about this further as well. Thank you for joining us, all three of you, today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And that's it for the moment as far as India Ideas is concerned. But do keep watching this space. Every Thursday, 8 p.m. we'll have more exciting startups featuring on the show. And for all the latest, keep tuning in to DD India.
जैसे सही वजन से ग्राहक होते हैं खुश, वैसे ही सही सुरक्षा से परिवार होता है कल की चिंता से मुक्त। इसलिए मेरी मानो, आज ही जुड़िए प्रधानमंत्री जीवन ज्योति बीमा योजना और प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षा बीमा योजना से, जो देती हैं 2-2 लाख रुपए का बीमा। दिखाइए समझदारी, निभाइए जिम्मेदारी।
आज ही अपनी नजदीकी बैंक शाखा या डाकघर जाकर इन योजनाओं से जुड़ें।
Congratulations to you for the award. You're already so accomplished and have been bestowed with many honors in the past. But tell us, how does this one feel, knowing it's the highest award which your country of origin can bestow upon you as an Indian living abroad?
Certainly, it's a very big recognition from one's own country, and I can only feel humbled, honored, privileged upon receiving the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award 2023. I feel this award really acknowledges the very hard work that scientists are doing and making a difference to society in turn.
You will meet 2 startup champions from the drinking water and energy space.
At the core of it is a device that captures information. So we make this easily usable through a mobile app that we have.
The first thing we need to do is reduce the demand for water, fresh water.
Once you open the room heater screen, you actually see the details around its functionality. Basically, you can actually control the room heater to turn it on and off by clicking the screen.
So once you replace them with a smart BLDC fan, which is a brushless DC motor fan, it will save about 1,500 rupees yearly for you on that as well.
Dobrodan, Namaskar. India is celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And also, we are celebrating 75 years of friendship with Serbia. And we have with us the ambassador of Serbia to talk more about India and Serbia growing friendship and growing diplomatic relations. Ambassador, welcome to DD News. It's a pleasure to have you. India is now a major voice as far as Global South is concerned. We have just finished the Global South Virtual Summit. So, what do you have to say on that?
Welcome to the Embassy of Serbia. Namaskar. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. We start with the event organized and hosted by India just a few days ago, with participation of our Vice Prime Minister and Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Ivica Dačić. That is an event important for us because it was organized just in the beginning of Indian presidency of G20. And those open doors for different nations, representatives of different nations, was an exceptional opportunity for an exchange of ideas and thoughts, having unique target to examine possibilities, how to progress, how to make world better place for us, for our children's and generations, coming generations.
Well, certainly, Ambassador. Now, India being the largest democracy of the world, and Serbia is also a democratic country. So, as countries from the Global South, what are the challenges that you think the both countries can address as far as the developing economies of the world are concerned?
You used the well-known and best definition of India, the world's largest democracy. Serbia is much smaller country in Central Europe, and there is an important geographic distance between our two countries and two people. But what we try to do here in our embassy, what is the sense of diplomatic activities we try to effectuate, is to show that geographic distance is the only one existing between our two people. And if we put beside different data using numbers, because all numbers are related to India from population and etc., we can't compare. So where we can find that similarity, and why not brotherhood between two people, on a level of mutual understanding and sharing of the same values. So sharing the same values and having similar, and why not the same projections about future of our two people, there we can always find together India and Serbia.
Well said, Ambassador. India and Serbia have come a long way from the days of NAM to now. So ever since Prime Minister Narendra Modi took over the reins of the country in 2014, what changes have you seen as far as the relationship and strengthening of ties between the two countries are concerned?
You are completely right. Heritage of NAM is very present in Serbia. In Serbia and Serbian capital Belgrade. Belgrade being a place of first summit of countries who participate already in the beginning in work of that international movement. But we can't stop on it. Everything we can inherit from that period is something we must use in observing possibilities to progress. So, you know, in January 2017, two political leaders, Indian PM Honorable Narendra Modi ji and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, being in that moment Prime Minister of Serbia, met in Gujarat. If you search news and common declarations from that period, and from perspective of today's relations, what we can see is increasing trend following progress of Indian society, economy, and image in international relations on one side, and having in the same time in concrete situations and concrete common projects confirmation of Serbian multifactorial foreign policy, counting on Serbian friends all around the world, and with India in just being on the top of that list.
Thank you so much on saying, when you say that India is on the top of the list as far as the friends are concerned. Now, Ambassador, any country is identified by its leadership. And we all know that the country is so proud to have a Prime Minister like Narendra Modi. Now, talking about this Russia-Ukraine war, how do you see Prime Minister Narendra Modi's stand telling both the countries to find a diplomatic solution?
To understand better our interest for Indian position regarding Ukraine crisis, we must start from a position of Serbia. Already in February last year, National Security Council in Serbia made a conclusion about that crisis, and the main parts and the main base is composed by few elements. Very strong relations with both peoples and countries, our respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, and the respect of international law. So any position of Indian political factors, starting from Prime Minister, but not excluding position of India in United Nations and on international level, are followed with very strong interest from our side, comparing and examining what the common points are. And during this period, and just a few moments ago, you asked me about the challenges we all share. One thing that we all learned, let's say, from that situation is a confirmation that world in the beginning of third decade of 21st century we are living, that world became really a global village. And speaking about the geographic distances, yes, that is existing, but we all understood how important consequences crisis in one part of the world can have on some other. So searching solutions for progress, we all must be completely conscious about events surrounding us and the consequences having on progress of our nations. So in that sense, position of Indian Prime Minister is something important for India, but something being extremely important to be analyzed in observing global impact of that conflict.
Well, absolutely. As you've said that the world is now a global village, and India has always felt that its world is a family. The Prime Minister has a vision and he believes that world is a family. Now, when we talk about the changing geopolitical situations, it is not only the pandemic, but also the Ukraine war. It has its effects across the world. So when we talk about food and energy security, how India and Serbia can work together to take on this challenge?
Serbia is a country very depending on import of energy, different sources of energy. So that is already first impact we had. And maybe during this interview we'll repeat one word very often repeated in India, diversity. So that multifactorial external policy of Serbia include also very open position for diversity of supplyment of energy and also diversity of supplyment of food in different parts of the world. Serbia is producing food, even being an exporter country. But impacts of, as you said, first we had the pandemics, then Ukrainian crisis, are so important all around the world that that geographic distance we mentioned is completely in the second plan of thoughts and necessity of projections, once again, as we said, being targeted in direction of progress and stability. So those shared values are the main base for any further discussions and cooperation.
Well, absolutely. You speak about shared values, and Prime Minister Modi and his government has always focused on people-to-people ties. So what has been the role of Indian diaspora in connecting both Serbia and India?
All around the world, members of diaspora of different nations are that stick, let's say, for hosting countries and the countries of their origin. During last few years, we had an incredibly increasing trend of Indian people who found Serbia as a new home, if I may say. During last 3 years, we have increasing trend on level of around 300%, our estimation, each year. Last year, our estimation is that around 3,000 people from India got a visa, long-term stay visa in Serbia, and that number will be more and more important in the future, just because of stronger bilateral economic cooperation, but also because of welcome that those people from India found in our country. So, speaking about numbers once again, if we say that during 1 year a few thousands people from India came, from comparing with the number, with the volume of Indian diaspora, that is a small number, but we all the time must have in mind what is the population of Serbia. And also what is important about that entry of Indian people in Serbia during last few years, and that we expect to be more and more important, is that if we observe structure, let's say, of those people, you'll find people in different areas, from some infrastructural projects in our country to IT sector and high technology companies. So during the time, their presence will be stronger and stronger connection between two countries. And I can't miss to share with you a situation that we have had during the pandemics. In one moment, Serbia was in a frame of COVID-related rules, so-called safe country. And during that period, thousands of Indian families used opportunity to transit through Serbia in direction of final destination for their children's being students in some Western countries. So possibility to reach final destination was to transit Serbia. So those transiting COVID tourists, if I may say, they are maybe the best promoters of closeness and the warm welcome they found in Serbia. So you never know. Sometimes there are some good moments in bad, difficult times. So I hope that in the future, reasons to have more and more people from India in Serbia will be in more developed and stronger bilateral cooperation, and better conditions for life and work of those people in our country.
Well, Ambassador, as you say that there are good moments in difficult times, and that reminds me of the Ukraine war, because a lot of students who were studying in Ukraine, now they have enrolled themselves into universities of Serbia. So what do you say that?
True. This autumn, let's say, till now we had around 200 students from India who applied and who got a visa in that sense. And, you know, we are capacities of our high education institutions are maybe limited, but what is not limited is welcome reserved for them, and also expectations that one day they come back from Serbia as engineers or in different being experts in different areas, that they will be the best Serbian diplomats in India.
Well, absolutely, why not? India has always been very proud of its soft power, which is yoga and Ayurveda. And COVID has proved that both Ayurveda and yoga are very, very powerful weapons against the pandemic. So do people practice yoga there in Serbia, and what is your take on that?
I must be honest that I learned many things about Ayurveda's style of life since my arrival in India. So in Serbia, not only yoga, not healthy way of life, healthy food, and some elements entering that Ayurvedic approach are more and more popular. But what is visible is that more and more people understand what that term include, that it is more than food, yoga, and or cosmetics, that it is a way of life. So thinking about promoting of Ayurveda, we count on two elements. Better understanding of Ayurvedic way of life, and why not psychology and way of thinking in Serbia, and also support from Indian side, and why not Indian state, considering Ayurvedic approach and Ayurveda in larger sense of the word as Indian brand, if I may say, and also a shared value. So comparing those two elements, it is to expect to have some more interesting things to share during our next interview.
Well, absolutely. When you talk about, speak about interesting things, another very powerful weapon of soft diplomacy is Bollywood. It has been connecting people across the world, and I am told that a lot of good movies have been shot in Serbia. To name a few, Uri, which was based on a surgical strike on Pakistan, and Bahubali 2. So, have you watched any of the Bollywood movies, and what is your take on that?
Very often I use Netflix to watch Indian movies in the first place,
Which
because
is a
that
great use.
permit me that is the way to learn the things, to understand better Indian reality. And yes, we are proud on production, common production between Indian, not exclusively Bollywood, but Indian in larger sense of with their Serbian partners, and also expecting better and better results. Anyway, if you asked me about my experience with Bollywood movies, I already learned a lot of things using watching Indian movies. I know very well not only who are Amir Khan, Alia, but who doesn't know for Priyanka Chopra Jones and Deepika Padukone. But I must tell you that I have my favorite Bollywood star for some particular reason, Miss Natasha Stankovic, who is married for, I think, the most popular cricket player in India, Mr. Handrik Pandya. So story about closeness, because between our two people have maybe the best confirmation in the human relations, and why not some famous mixed couples.
Why not? Because she's, let me tell you that we have a very beautiful daughter-in-law from your country, whom Hardik Pandya has married, and we all hope that someday Hardik Pandya's influence would be there as far as cricket is concerned in Serbia. Now, before I let you go, Ambassador, one last question. India is now the president of G20 nations. It is holding the presidency. So how important is that for India, a country like India, which is also the largest democracy in the world? And again, coming back to the question of Global South.
During a short statement we made just some time ago regarding event hosted by India recently, I used a phrase that I like so much, a phrase that I heard from Indian politicians, that Indian presidency is based on 3D: democracy, development, and diversity. So those three elements have let's say basic sense, but they have a larger, even symbolic stamp that India would like to put on file of presidency of G20. So from our side, all three words, all three categories, all three values are shared, supported, and being in focus of interest of our political decision makers and our nation in total. So expectations from India, from our side, are very simple and very concrete, that India succeed in their presidency and succeed in ambition to bring an approach who will be the best advertisement for some values shared by our side.
Well, on that note, I would also like to tell the viewers that a stamp has been released by Serbia on the 75 years of friendship between the two countries, and to just lift up the mood on the 75 years of friendship, I would say, how's the Josh? Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
थैंक यू सर। जिंदगी टॉप गियर में चलेगी जब परिवार के कल की सुरक्षा होगी नॉन स्टॉप। इसलिए मेरी मानो, आज ही जुड़िए प्रधानमंत्री जीवन ज्योति बीमा योजना और प्रधानमंत्री सुरक्षा बीमा योजना से, जो देती हैं 2-2 लाख रुपए का बीमा। दिखाइए समझदारी, निभाइए जिम्मेदारी।
आज ही अपनी नजदीकी बैंक शाखा या डाकघर जाकर इन योजनाओं से जुड़ें।
Congratulations to you for the award. You're already so accomplished and have been bestowed with many honors in the past. But tell us, how does this one feel, knowing it's the highest award which your country of origin can bestow upon you as an Indian living abroad?
Certainly, it's a very big recognition from one's own country, and I can only feel humbled, honored, privileged upon receiving the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award 2023. I feel this award really acknowledges the very hard work that scientists are doing and making a difference to society in turn.
Both as an educationist and as a parliamentarian, which are the schemes of the Modi government that you think have actually impacted the youth and the poorest of poor?
There's so many startups, unicorns coming up, so many activities going on. and we are reaching the common man, reaching the people through direct benefit transfer for money and various insurance schemes for women, children, for women, and for all sections of the society. There is a full flow of knowledge and information and opportunity for all sections of the society under Modi government.
सर आपका केवाईसी अपडेट करना है, नहीं तो अकाउंट और एटीएम कार्ड ब्लॉक हो जाएगा।
सावधान सावधान।
2.5 करोड़ का इनाम मुझे।
देखिए, अनजाने कॉल्स, फर्जी ईमेल्स, लिंक्स और जाली ऐप से अपना पिन, ओटीपी, पासवर्ड कभी भी किसी के साथ शेयर न करें। आप रहेंगे सावधान तो नहीं होगा नुकसान। आरबीआई कहता है, जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Namaskar and thank you very much for joining us here on News Night. On the program tonight, we turn our focus to France, where there is an attempt to change the pension system, the reform which has now increased the working age to 64, and it also increases the number of years of additional contribution to the pension scheme. Thereby, it also halts the payouts for a few more years, and it would increase payments inward, and at the same time, it would, restrict payments outwards. So this has come up with stiff resistance from the common French worker in the public sector, while the workers in the private sector, they wonder what the strike is all about. They call it a nuisance. So that's going to be our story in focus tonight. Let's begin with the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lays the foundation stone and inaugurates multiple development initiatives worth 38,800 crore rupees in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Dedicates to the nation, Maharashtra, the Mumbai Metro rail lines 2A and 7. And he says that India is spending on its physical and social infrastructure with a futuristic thinking and modern approach. Prime Minister also lays the foundation stone and dedicates various development projects related to irrigation, drinking water and a highway, national highway development project in Yadgir in Karnataka. And he underlines the importance of water security for the development of the 21st century and asserts that the BJP's priority is development and not vote bank politics. After a successful visit to the Maldives, the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar arrives in Colombo for a much-anticipated visit to Sri Lanka. Will meet the cash-strapped country's top leadership to finalize a debt restructuring plan to help Colombo carve out a path from its worst economic crisis. Reacting to Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif's appeal for peace, India says that there should be a conducive atmosphere without terror, hostility or violence for good neighborly relations with Pakistan. Describes a BBC documentary on the 2002 Gujarat riots as a propaganda piece designed to push a particular discredited narrative. Major setback for Google. The Supreme Court refuses to entertain a plea by the Android maker against the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal's order, refuses interim stay on the 1,337 crore rupees penalty on Google. French workers walk out in mass strikes against plans to raise the retirement age. The strikes cripple much of France's public transport as protesters come out in force against a deeply unpopular pensions overhaul, with schools and media also being affected. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg expresses confidence that Turkey will approve Sweden and Finland's bid to join the alliance. Turkey has held up the process while pressing the two Nordic countries to crack down on groups it considers to be terrorist organizations. Berlin says it would send German-made tanks to Ukraine so long as the United States agrees to do likewise. And sources say that the Pentagon is still not prepared to meet Kiev's request for M1 Abrams tanks. So Russia warns the West against supplying Ukraine with longer-range weaponry and says that such a move would escalate the war. Our top story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stones of and dedicated various development projects related to irrigation and drinking water in Karnataka. The Prime Minister emphasized that the double-engine government at the centre and the state has focused on the development of the backward regions by implementing projects that will improve the living standards of the people. Karnataka's Yadgir is one of those 100 aspirational districts that are backward in the country and are given special impetus and incentives to grow.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has emphasized that the double-engine government at the centre and state has focused on the development of the backward regions by implementing projects that will improve the living standards of the people. He was speaking after inaugurating development projects for ease of living in North Karnataka. PM pointed out that the previous governments treated the backward regions as vote banks and worked only for votes. But since 2014, the government has stressed on the development of these regions through water, electricity and road connectivity.
जब सड़क, बिजली और पानी जैसे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर निवेश करने का समय था, तब उस समय जो दल सरकारों में थे, उन दलों ने वोट बैंक की राजनीति को बढ़ावा दिया। साथियों, हमारी सरकार की प्राथमिकता वोट बैंक नहीं है, हमारी प्राथमिकता है विकास, विकास और विकास।
Karnataka's Yadgiri is one of those 100 aspirational districts that are backward in the country and are given special impetus and incentives to grow. Prime Minister inaugurated Narayanpur Left Bank Canal with modern irrigation system. The project is implemented at a cost of 4,700 crore rupees and will help irrigate over 4.5 lakh hectares in the backward regions of Yadgiri, Raichur and Kalburgi. Prime Minister also laid the foundation stone for multi-village drinking water projects under Jal Jeevan Mission. A water treatment plant of 117 MLD will be built under the scheme. The project, which costs more than 2,050 crore rupees, will provide potable water to about 2.3 lakh households of more than 700 rural habitations and 3 towns of Yadgiri district. Prime Minister said that water security is an essential requirement for the developed India. He added that small farmers and marginalized class get priority in the policies framed by the central government.
केंद्र सरकार किसानों के लिए पीएम किसान सम्मान निधि योजना के तहत 6,000 रुपये देती है। वहीं कर्नाटका सरकार इसमें 4,000 रुपया और जोड़ती है ताकि किसानों को डबल लाभ हो।
Prime Minister also laid the foundation stone of the 65.5 kilometer section of NH 150C. This 6-lane greenfield roads project is part of Surat-Chennai Expressway. It is being built at a cost of about 2,000 crore rupees.
Shri Narendra Modi, please welcome, put your hands together and welcome the Honorable Prime Minister of India.
PM Modi also visited Kalburgi in Karnataka, where he distributed title deeds to eligible beneficiaries of newly declared revenue villages to the Banjara community. For this community, the occasion was like a celebration. The title deeds would provide a permanent residence to 50,000 families of Banjara community in Karnataka. After getting permanent address, the beneficiaries of this community will also have other benefits of residential schemes, tapped water connectivity and other schemes like women empowerment. PM assured them that they will not remain isolated anymore. The government's welfare schemes would bring a new ray of hope in their lives. With Anuj Yadav in Kalburgi and Aditya Srivastav in Yadgiri, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
Well, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated and dedicated and also laid the foundation stone of multiple development projects in Mumbai as well. The Prime Minister, in fact, initiated the transfer of approved loans of over 1 lakh beneficiaries to over 1 lakh beneficiaries under the Pradhan Mantri Swanidhi Yojana. And the projects include dedicating to the nation the Mumbai Metro rail lines 2A and 7, laying the foundation stone for the redevelopment of the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj terminus, and 7 sewage treatment plants, inaugurating 20 the Balasaheb Thackeray Alpa Dwarkana, and also the starting of the road concretization project for around 400 kilometers of roads in Mumbai. Addressing this gathering, the Prime Minister said that these projects, they will play a major role in making Mumbai a better metropolitan city, and also congratulated the beneficiaries and Mumbaikars.
आजादी के बाद पहली बार आज भारत बड़े सपने देखने और उन सपनों को पूरा करने का साहस कर रहा है। वरना हमारे यहां तो पिछली सदी का एक लंबा कालखंड सिर्फ और सिर्फ गरीबी की चर्चा करना, दुनिया से मदद मांगना, जैसे तैसे गुजारा करने में ही बीत गया। ये भी आजाद भारत के इतिहास में पहली बार हो रहा है जब दुनिया को भी भारत के बड़े बड़े संकल्पों पर भरोसा है। इसलिए आजादी के अमृत काल में विकसित भारत के निर्माण की जितनी उत्सुकता भारतीयों को है, उतना ही आशावाद दुनिया में भी दिख रहा है।
The External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar reached Colombo in the afternoon. This is the second leg of his two-nation visit. The visit to the island nation, it comes at a crucial time as Sri Lanka has been making efforts to obtain an extended fund facility from the International Monetary Fund. Dr. Jaishankar is scheduled to meet the Sri Lankan leadership, hold discussions with the Foreign Minister Ali Sabri as well.
After winding up his successful visit to Maldives, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Thursday arrived in Colombo for a much-anticipated visit to Sri Lanka. He will meet the cash-strapped country's top leadership to finalize a debt restructuring plan to help Colombo carve out a path from its worst economic crisis. Dr. S. Jaishankar, who rounded off his official visit to the Maldives, was welcomed by Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Tharaka Balasuriya. Dr. S. Jaishankar is scheduled to have meetings with his Sri Lankan counterpart Ali Sabri and President Ranil Wickremesinghe. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar was in Malé on Wednesday as part of his 3-day visit to Maldives and Sri Lanka. Maldives President Ibrahim Mohammed Soli on Thursday joined in the groundbreaking ceremony of the Hanimadu International Airport project. While speaking at the ceremony, Dr. S. Jaishankar said India's partnership with the Maldives is based on our genuine desire to work together for each other's welfare and interests.
India's partnership with the Maldives is based on our genuine desire to work together for each other's welfare and interest. It is a partnership that has enabled us to swiftly and effectively respond to challenges as we saw recently during the COVID pandemic. It is a partnership that has enabled us to deliver results and bring about tangible benefits to our people in accordance with their wishes, aspirations, and priorities.
He also said that the initiation of the Hanimadu International Airport Development Project has marked a historic milestone in the robust India-Maldives development partnership.
With the initiation of the Hanimadu International Airport Development Project, we mark a historic milestone in the robust India-Maldives development partnership. This project has the potential to bring our peoples even closer, and for that reason, It merits our highest attention and our greatest appreciation. The sheer numbers with which you are all present here today speaks volumes about the significance of this project for northern Maldives and India. I want to underline, India is privileged to stand together with all of you in its execution.
External Affairs Minister also paid homage to Sultan Muhammad Thakuru Fanu, a revered national hero of the Maldives, at his memorial center. Dr. S. Shankar, along with Foreign Minister of Maldives Abdullah Shahid, inaugurated the India-funded community center in Hokkaido. Dr. S. Shankar expressed India's commitment towards voicing concerns of smaller countries in G20. He also visited the Manadu's water and sanitation facility project funded by India. Newsnight Desk, DD, India.
The Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson has briefed the media and said that India would like to support Sri Lanka bilaterally.
We would like to be supportive. We have been supportive bilaterally in assistance. There is an important element now of debt, having a sustainable debt framework and a structure for Sri Lanka. The IMF is leading that. As part of that, they wanted financing assurances from other creditors. We have done that. We have formally sent it to the IMF, and I think that information has been made public by the Sri Lankan side. And we are hopeful that this would help, and Sri Lanka is able to move to a path of more sustainable financial, fiscal management.
And regarding relations with Pakistan, Arinder Bagchi said that India has always wanted good neighborly relations, normal relations with Pakistan, but there should be a conducive atmosphere without any terror, hostility or violence.
हमारी जो पोजीशन है मैं उसी को दोहराऊंगा कि हमने कहा है कि हम हमेशा नॉर्मल नेबरली रिलेशंस चाहते हैं पाकिस्तान के साथ, पर एक कंड्यूसिव एटमॉस्फेयर होनी चाहिए जिसमें टेरर या हॉस्टिलिटी या वायलेंस ना हो. तो हमारी पोजीशन वही है.
Moving on to our next story, there is growing unrest among French public sector workers. They are protesting against a government plan to increase the working age to 64 from 62. That would imply that they would have to pay more towards a contributory pension that they would only start receiving 2 years later. And the life expectancy in France is 82 years. 62% of the population are in the age group of 15 to 64 years. And 21% are above the age of 65. Here's a report.
It's clear by these scenes that most workers in France are unhappy with the decision to change the pension plan. They seem to be unhappy about having to work longer in life. This protest is a sample of unions in Nice, southern France. But the protests were all over. In Saint-Nazaire in western France, dockers and refinery workers joined the protests. French train drivers, teachers and refinery workers are among those who joined a nationwide day of strikes on Thursday against government plans to raise the retirement age by 2 years to 64.
First of all, I expect the workers, the employees of this country, opposing this pension reform project. And there are many of them because they are opposed to the postponement of the legal retirement age of 64. That they come to demonstrate everywhere in France in the almost 200 organized points of demonstrations, and that they come peacefully to say no. We don't agree because this reform is unfair, because it will affect workers who started working earlier and who will be forced to contribute longer. That they therefore come to express their disagreement in a peaceful demonstration, as one can do in a democracy. There has to be a lot of demonstrators.
Some Parisians, however, find the strikes an unnecessary and frequent nuisance. This is the view of the private sector.
No, I don't understand, because it's the same people who go on strike all the time. The CNF network, RATP, but we in the private sector, one day we are going into retirement. But we are not on strike, we always suffer. So, no, I don't find it normal.
The strikes and protests are a major test for President Emmanuel Macron, as opinion polls show his pension plan is highly unpopular. But Macron feels it is vital to ensure the system does not go bust. There is already anger over a cost of living crisis. The pension reform still needs to go through Parliament where Macron does not have an absolute majority but is hoping for support from conservatives. Unions say there are other ways to ensure the viability of the pension system. They suggest a super-rich tax and increasing employers' contributions. High school students in Paris also seemed to think the workers deserved better. Police stood guard as more than a dozen students gathered in front of Helen Boucher High School in eastern Paris with banners supporting the anti-reform movement. Metros, commuter trains, buses and trams were running at limited service. The unions would, however, need to transform this undercurrent of unhappiness into a mass social protest to eventually force the government's hand. Right now, Macron and Born feel comfortable enough to press ahead with the reform. News Night Desk, DD India.
So let's take a closer look at this new pension reform of France. It's a proposal that was presented on the 17th of January 2023. And France's legal retirement age is currently at the age of 62. The special schemes are already in existence for an early retirement, so there's no change in that. And in 2019, Macron, in fact, had proposed a points-based system for retirement and retirement after gaining a certain number of points. And he said that this would harmonize the rules across all sectors. The public sector workers, they went on the biggest strikes in decades in 2019 itself. And COVID forced Macron to, in early 2020, to put away those plans and put them on hold. Now the main idea is in raising the legal retirement age from 62 to 64 by 2030. And this measure is, as we can see, deeply unpopular, as we saw on that report. 66% people don't like it. And it meets Macron's campaign promise, however, in April of 2022. So he had already talked about it. 1,200 euros is the minimum state pension. So it works out to a little about 10,000 euros a month or so, a year or so. So it's valid for about those who made required contributions over a lifetime. It's only valid for those people. And bold decision is what people are saying this is, because it comes in the middle of the cost of living squeeze that the country is facing. So they need to control their expenses, and this is one way of doing it. And the inflation rate, however, is at 6.7%, and it's actually among the lowest in the Eurozone because the government has been supporting many of the expenses through subsidies on energy. Now, corporates, small businesses, bakers, which are popular in the French system, they are all under stress because they have to pay larger sums. The trade unions are against any increase in the retirement age. They want it to remain the same. And in fact, Marine Le Pen of the right and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's from the left, they also want to reduce the retirement age to about 60. So France is currently spending about 14% of their GDP on pensions, nearly double what the OECD average is. And by 2030, the deficit in France's pensions will reach 14 billion euros. These are their concerns. But the government's new rules, they now need to go to parliament if they are not in effect still. Macron's centrist alliance, they currently hold 250 seats in the National Assembly, so they need some support. Macron remains unpopular currently, so he's taking a gamble here with an approval rating of just 36% when this, the last polls were done. And the president is in his second term. And this is clearly a test of his strength to hold firm or, to sit this out and try and win it, because he and Elizabeth Born, who was in that photograph, are trying to push this forward. So this brings us in focus tonight, and we are going to focus on this. French workers rise up against the new pension plan. French workers rise up against the new pension plan. And joining us in this discussion are Ambassador Mohan Kumar, who is former Indian ambassador to France and chairman of RIS, and Professor Umu Salma Bhaba is this from the Center of European Studies at JNU. Thank you very much, both of you, for being with us. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, let me start with you. Now, the population of France, when I checked on Google, was about 47 million in 1960, and it's currently about 67 million. So, it's gone up by about 20 million in 60 years. But the GDP has risen from 6,000 crore USD to 2.96 lakh crore USDs currently. Surely the country can afford a pension system. It's a rich country.
Yes, but I think Charles de Gaulle famously observed that how can you govern a country with 246 varieties of cheese? And I think the French continue to be ungovernable in this respect. This is a matter of great sensitivity for most French people because it is considered in French, if I can use the word acquis. And acquis in French means that the labor unions and the working class have fought very hard to achieve or to accomplish this particular thing. And they don't want to give it up. They don't care that the rest of Europe's retirement age has increased. The problem, as I see it, frankly, is that there is going to be a deficit of 14 to 17 billion euros.
Yes.
Total bill of the pension system in France is 340 billion euros. So to view it from that angle, many unions are saying, what's the big deal? It's only 10% or even less. So why do you bother? But the fact of the matter is the present system is unsustainable because you have lesser and lesser people working for more and more people who are going to retire. France has a high fertility rate, so it doesn't have the same problem as many other European countries. But be that as it may, there are other issues about providing full-time employment in France. A lot of young people now are on contract system because to give full-time employment in France is very, very difficult for the employer of what is known as charge sociale, which again means that for every euro that the employee contributes to the pension system, the employer is also requested or required to contribute. I mean, frankly, Mark, there are only three ways to solve the problem. It's not a new problem. Either you reduce the very attractive pension that French people get, or you increase taxes, or you make people work longer. So the politicians in France over time have not been able to do the other two things, which is reduce the level of pension or increase the taxes, because if you increase the taxes, then business gets affected and employment suffers. So most politicians are looking at the third option, which is to ask people to work more.
Yes, okay. Fair enough. So I can understand. Yeah, right.
That somehow is simply not acceptable for the average French person.
So the French person feels he's being cheated. Obviously, Professor Baba, you know, France ranks 26th in the world in terms of per capita income. That's around 56,000 US dollars. But the pension is not very large. It's 1,200 euros a month. So per annum, it would work out to just about, you know, in US dollar terms, it would be a little more than about $13,000 or something. But how dependent are the French people on this pension?
Babu, Satyamurti.
Purushottam, వాడి పేరెత్తదు నా దగ్గర. ఎంత కండకావరం వాడికి, నా కూతుర్నే ప్రేమిస్తాడా? ఎన్ని గుండెలు వాడికి? అందుకే అసభ్య ప్రవర్తన కింద వాడిని సస్పెండ్ చేసి అవతల పారేసి. ఇక వాడి ప్రస్తావన నా దగ్గర తీసుకురావద్దు.
తమకు చెప్పదగ్గం తోండి కాదు కాని బాబు, మీరు ఎన్నిసార్లు చెప్పలేదు బాబు, ఫారెన్లో అయితే ప్రేమకు గొప్ప తక్కువ, ఉన్నవాడు లేనివాడు ఇటువంటి భేదాలు ఏవి ఉండవని, నిజమైన ప్రేమకు అక్కడ న్యాయం జరుగుతుందని.
అది వేరు, ఇది వేరు. అది ఫారెన్, ఇది ఇండియా. వాడు గుమాస్తా, నేను ఆఫీసర్ని.
ఇండియాలోనైనా ఫారెన్ లోనైనా రెండు మనసులు కలిస్తే దాన్ని ప్రేమనే కదా బాబు అంటారు. అండమాన్లోనైనా అమెరికాలోనైనా ప్రేమకు జరగాల్సిన న్యాయం ఒకటే కదా బాబు, అదే పెళ్లి.
పురుషోత్తం,
కాస్త శాంతంగా ఆలోచించండి బాబు. ఉద్యోగంలో చేరినప్పుడు మీరు కూడా గుమస్తానే కదా. 4 ఏళ్లలో ప్రమోషన్ వస్తే సత్యమూర్తి మాత్రం ఆఫీసర్ కాడా బాబు? ఏం లేకపోతే గుమస్తాలు ఏమైనా హ్యాపీగా బతకడం లేదా?
అది కాదయ్యా, వాడు నా పర్మిషన్ లేకుండా నా కూతుర్ని ప్రేమించేసి.
ఏంటి బాబు, మీ అమ్మాయిని ప్రేమిస్తారు, పర్మిషన్ ఇవ్వమంటే మీరు ఇస్తారా? వాళ్ళిద్దరూ ఒకరినొకరు అర్థం చేసుకున్నారు, మనసులు ఇచ్చి పుచ్చుకున్నారు. పెళ్లికి ఇంతకన్నా కావాల్సిన అర్హతలు ఏముంటాయి బాబు? చూడ ముచ్చటేందంట. మీరు ఇంకేం ఆలోచించకండి బాబు, మీరు ఊనేసిన పెళ్లికి శుభలేఖలు అడ్రస్ చేస్తాను.
అంతేనంటావా?
అంతే బాబు.
గో అహెడ్.
got it.
ఆలోచించండి, నిజ జీవితంలో ఇలాంటి పరిస్థితి వస్తే ఎన్ని కష్టాలు వస్తాయో. కానీ మంచిదైంది బ్యాంకింగ్ కి రావు. మీ వయసు 70 ఏళ్లు మించినా లేదా మీరు వికలాంగులైనా బ్యాంక్ మీకు కొన్ని అవసరమైన బ్యాంకింగ్ సౌకర్యాలు ఇంటికి అందించగలదు. ఆర్బీఐ అంటుంది, విషయాలు తెలుసుకోండి, జాగరూకంగా ఉండండి.
నమస్తే, దూరదర్శన్ వార్తలకు స్వాగతం. నేను ప్రజ్ఞ. కరోనాను నియంత్రించేందుకు ప్రతి ఒక్కరూ మాస్కును తప్పనిసరిగా ధరించాలి. ముక్కు, నోరు కప్పి ఉంచేలా సరైన పద్ధతిలో మాస్కును ధరించాలి. తరచూ చేతులను శుభ్రం చేసుకోవాలి. వ్యక్తిగత పరిశుభ్రతను పాటిస్తూ భౌతిక దూరాన్ని తప్పక పాటించాలి. అర్హులందరూ వ్యాక్సిన్ వేయించుకోవాలి. నిబంధనలు పాటిద్దాం, కరోనాను జయిద్దాం. వార్తల్లో ముందుగా ముఖ్యాంశాలు. మహారాష్ట్రలో 38,800 కోట్ల రూపాయల అభివృద్ధి పనులకు శ్రీకారం చుట్టిన ప్రధాని. స్వాతంత్ర్యం అనంతరం భారత్ గొప్ప కలలను సాకారం చేసే దిశగా ముందుకు వెళుతోందని అభివర్ణించిన మోదీ. ఉన్నత విద్యాశాఖపై ముఖ్యమంత్రి జగన్ సమీక్ష. విద్యాశాఖలో ఖాళీలపై ప్రత్యేక దృష్టి సారించాలని అధికారులకు ఆదేశం. IIITలో సిబ్బంది నియామకం, ఇతర పెండింగ్ అంశాలను సత్వరమే పరిష్కరించాలని దిశానిర్దేశం. రైతులకు మేలు చేసేలా రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం ధాన్యం కొనుగోలు విధానాన్ని అమలు చేస్తోందన్న మంత్రి కారుమూరి నాగేశ్వరరావు. 3.5 ఏళ్లలో 2,88,00,000 మెట్రిక్ టన్నుల ధాన్యాన్ని కొనుగోలు చేశామని వెల్లడి. దళారీ వ్యవస్థను పూర్తిగా నిర్మూలించామని స్పష్టీకరణ. రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా యోగి వేమన జయంతి కార్యక్రమాలు. తాడేపల్లిలో నివాళులర్పించిన ముఖ్యమంత్రి జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి. వార్తలను వివరాలు చూద్దాం. సికింద్రాబాద్లోని రామ్ గోపాల్పేట ప్రాంతంలో ఈ రోజు ఉదయం 11 గంటల సమయంలో అగ్ని ప్రమాదం సంభవించింది. 6 అంతస్తుల భవనంలో వ్యాపార సముదాయాలు, సెల్లార్లో ఒక్కసారిగా అగ్ని కీలలు ఎగిసిపడ్డాయి. చుట్టూ అలముకున్న దట్టమైన పొగతో ప్రాంతమంతా భయానక వాతావరణం నెలకొంది. సమీపంలోని మరో 4 భవనాలకు మంటలు వ్యాపించడంతో పరిస్థితి ఆందోళనకరంగా మారింది. ప్రమాద సమాచారం అందిన వెంటనే అగ్నిమాపక దళ సిబ్బంది హుటాహుటిన సహాయక చర్యలు చేపట్టారు. మంటలను అదుపులోకి తీసుకువచ్చే ప్రయత్నం ఇంకా కొనసాగుతూనే ఉంది. ఈ క్రమంలో 2 అగ్నిమాపక సిబ్బంది అస్వస్థతకు గురయ్యారు. సమీపంలోని కాచిబౌలి కాలనీకి పోలీసులు ఖాళీ చేయించారు. చుట్టుపక్కల ఇళ్ల నుంచి గ్యాస్ సిలిండర్లను తరలించారు. భవనం పరిసరాల్లోకి ఎవరూ రాకుండా బారికేట్లు ఏర్పాటు చేశారు. అగ్ని ప్రమాదంపై రామ్ గోపాల్పేట పోలీసులు కేసు నమోదు చేశారు. 2 ఆచూకీ తెలియాల్సి ఉంది. ప్రమాదం జరిగిన భవనాల్ని తెలంగాణ హోంమంత్రి మసూద్ అలీ పరిశీలించారు. తిరుమలలో ఈ నెల 28న రథసప్తమి వేడుకలు నిర్వహించనున్నట్లు తిరుమల తిరుపతి దేవస్థానం ఒక ప్రకటనలో తెలియజేసింది. సూర్య జయంతి సందర్భంగా శ్రీవారి ఆలయంలో రథసప్తమి పర్వదినం రోజు 7 వాహనాలపై స్వామివారు ఆలయ మాడవీధుల్లో విహరించి భక్తులకు దర్శనమిస్తారు. రథసప్తమి నేపథ్యంలో ఆలయంలో నిర్వహించే కళ్యాణోత్సవం, ఊంజల్ సేవ, ఆర్జిత బ్రహ్మోత్సవం, సహస్ర దీపాలంకరణ సేవలను టీటీడీ రద్దు చేసింది. ఇక ఉదయం 5:30 నుంచి వాహన సేవలు ప్రారంభమవుతాయి. సూర్యప్రభ, చిన్నశేష వాహనం, గరుడ వాహనం, హనుమంత వాహన సేవ అనంతరం చక్ర స్నానం నిర్వహిస్తారు. ఇక సాయంత్రం కల్పవృక్ష వాహనం, సర్వభూపాల వాహనం, చంద్రప్రభ వాహన సేవ నిర్వహిస్తారు. ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ విద్యుత్ నియంత్రణ మండలి ఆధ్వర్యంలో ప్రజాభిప్రాయ సేకరణ కార్యక్రమాన్ని ఈ రోజు విశాఖ తూర్పు ప్రాంత విద్యుత్ పంపిణీ సంస్థ కార్యాలయంలో నిర్వహించింది. 3 రోజుల పాటు జరిగే కార్యక్రమంలో తూర్పు, సెంట్రల్, దక్షిణ విద్యుత్ పంపిణీ సంస్థల అధికారులు పాల్గొంటారు. విద్యుత్ నియంత్రణ మండలి చైర్మన్ జస్టిస్ సి నాగార్జున రెడ్డి నేతృత్వంలో ఈ అభిప్రాయ సేకరణ జరగనుంది. ఈ సందర్భంగా జస్టిస్ నాగార్జున రెడ్డి మాట్లాడుతూ కొన్ని పరిశ్రమల విద్యుత్ వినియోగంలో మార్పులు చేస్తున్నామని చెప్పారు. విద్యుత్ ఛార్జీలు పెంచుతున్నారనే వార్తల్లో వాస్తవం లేదన్నారు.
సమర్పించడం జరిగింది. దాని మీద వివరంగా చర్చించేందుకు బహిరంగ విచారణ ఏర్పాటు చేయడం జరిగింది. ఈ రోజు మొదలుకొని 3 రోజుల పాటు జరుగుతుంది. ఈ రోజు ఉదయం 10:30 గంటల నుండి బహిరంగ విచారణ మొదలైంది. 15 మంది అభ్యంతరదారులు మాట్లాడే అవకాశం మేము కల్పించడం జరిగింది. అందులో భాగంగా ఈరోజు 10:30 నుండి ఇప్పటిదాకా విచారణ చేపట్టాం. కొంతమంది అభ్యంతరదారులు వారి అభిప్రాయాలు చెప్పడం జరిగింది. ఇండస్ట్రీకి తప్పితే ఇండస్ట్రియల్ కేటగిరీలో పవర్ ఇంటెన్సివ్ కేటగిరీకి మాత్రమే కొన్ని మార్పులు సూచించారు. అవి ఎంతవరకు సమంజసము, ఎంతవరకు అంగీకరించాలి అనేది మేము వారి అభిప్రాయాలు విన్న తర్వాత, అభ్యంతరాలు విన్న తర్వాత మేము పరీక్షించి నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంటాం. వారికి రాయితీ ఇస్తున్నారు, ఆ రాయితీ అలాగే ఉంటుంది. రాయితీ కాకుండా డిమాండ్ ఛార్జెస్, తర్వాత టైమ్ ఆఫ్ ది డే, ఈ రెండు, అంతేకాకుండా మినిమం ఛార్జెస్, ఈ మూడు ప్రతిపాదించడం జరిగింది. వాళ్ళు పరిశీలించిన తర్వాత తుది నిర్ణయం తీసుకుంటాం.
రైల్వే స్టేషన్ల పునరాభివృద్ధి ప్రాజెక్టు కింద నెల్లూరు రైల్వే స్టేషన్ ఎంపికైంది. ప్రయాణికుల రద్దీని దృష్టిలో ఉంచుకుని భవిష్యత్ అవసరాలకు అనుగుణంగా తీర్చిదిద్దేందుకు, ఉన్నత స్థాయి వసతులు కల్పించేందుకు ఇంజనీరింగ్ ప్రొక్యూర్మెంట్ నిర్మాణం విధానంలో ఈ స్టేషన్లో అభివృద్ధి చేసేందుకు ప్రణాళికలు రూపొందించడం జరిగింది. ఈ పనులను 21 నెలల వ్యవధిలో అనగా మే 2024 నాటికి పూర్తి చేయాల్సి ఉంది. ఇందులో భాగంగా ఇప్పటికే రైల్వే అధికారులు పనులను ప్రారంభించారు. రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వ ఉద్యోగుల ఆర్థిక ప్రయోజనాలను చెల్లించడంలో ప్రభుత్వ జాప్యం చేస్తోందని ఉద్యోగుల సంఘం అధ్యక్షులు సూర్యనారాయణ తెలియజేశారు. ఉద్యోగుల సమస్యలను పరిష్కరించాలని కోరుతూ ఈ రోజు విజయవాడ రాజ్భవన్లో వారు రాష్ట్ర గవర్నర్ బిశ్వభూషణ్ హరిచందన్ను కలిసి వినతి పత్రాన్ని అందజేశారు. అనంతరం సూర్యనారాయణ మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతూ గవర్నర్ను కలిసి అన్ని విషయాలు ఆయనకు వివరించామని, కొన్ని అంశాలపై గవర్నర్ సానుకూలంగా స్పందించారని తెలియజేశారు. ఉద్యోగుల అనుమతి లేకుండా జీపీఎస్ విత్డ్రా చేశారని, దీనిపై ఇప్పటికే ఆర్థిక శాఖ అధికారులు కేబినెట్ ఉపసంఘానికి సమస్యలు తెలియజేశామని, కానీ వారు స్పందించకపోవడం వల్ల గవర్నర్ను కలిసి విజ్ఞప్తి చేసినట్లు సూర్యనారాయణ స్పష్టం చేశారు.
తెరదీసినటువంటి రోజుగా ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ ప్రభుత్వ ఉద్యోగుల సంఘంగా మేము అభిప్రాయపడతా ఉన్నాం. భారతదేశ చరిత్రలోనే మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వ ఉద్యోగులు తమకి చెల్లించవలసిన జీతభత్యాలు, ప్రభుత్వం తన ఫైనాన్షియల్ మేనేజ్మెంట్, ఆర్థిక వ్యవహారాల నిర్వహణకు సంబంధించి, అకౌంట్ల నిర్వహణకు సంబంధించి కొన్ని రకాలైనటువంటి స్వీయ నిర్దేశిత మార్గదర్శకాలని, కోడ్లని అడాప్ట్ చేసుకున్నటువంటి పరిస్థితిని గవర్నర్ గారికి వివరించాం. సర్వస్వతంత్ర అధికారిగా వ్యవహరిస్తారు కాబట్టి రాజ్యాంగ పరంగా వారికి ఈ విషయాలన్నీ సోదాహరణంగా ప్రభుత్వ అధికారిక ఉత్తర్వులతో సహా సాక్ష్యాధారాలుగా వివరించి గవర్నర్ గారిని కలిసి మేము రిక్వెస్ట్ చేయడం జరిగింది. వారు చాలా సానుకూల సావకాశంగా విన్నారు. కొన్ని సందేహాలు కూడా మమ్మల్ని ప్రశ్నించడం జరిగింది. ఇప్పటికే స్పష్టమైన నిబంధనలు ఉండగా మరలా ఒక చట్టం చేయాల్సిన అవసరం ఏముందని కూడా గవర్నర్ గారు మమ్మల్ని అడిగారు. దానికి చాలా స్పష్టంగా చెప్పాం. తను ఏర్పరచుకున్న నిబంధనలు తానే ఉల్లంఘిస్తుందని ఎవరు ఊహించలేదు కాబట్టి ఏప్రిల్ నుంచి ప్రభుత్వం నుంచి రావాల్సినటువంటి అన్ని రకాల ఆర్థిక ప్రయోజనాలు, సర్వీస్ ప్రయోజనాల విషయంలో ఒక తీవ్రమైన ఆందోళనకు శ్రీకారం చుడతామని మేము ప్రకటించున్నాం.
ప్రభుత్వం ఉద్యాన పంటల సేకరణ కేంద్రాల ఏర్పాటుకు అధిక ప్రాధాన్యత ఇస్తోందని అనంతపురం జిల్లా ఉద్యానవన శాఖ అధికారి రఘునాథ్ రెడ్డి తెలియజేశారు. జిల్లా కలెక్టర్ ఎస్ నాగలక్ష్మితో పాటు ఆయన ఉద్యాన శాఖ సేకరణ కేంద్రాన్ని పరిశీలించి లబ్దిదారులతో మాట్లాడారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా రఘునాథ్ రెడ్డి దూరదర్శన్తో మాట్లాడుతూ జిల్లాలో 1,00,000 మందికి పైగా ఉద్యాన పంట సాగు చేస్తూ మంచి లాభాలు పొందుతున్నారన్నారు. రైతు ఉత్పత్తిదారుల సంఘాలకు ఉద్యాన పంటల సేకరణ కేంద్రాలను మంజూరు చేస్తున్నామని అన్నారు. సేకరణ కేంద్రాల ద్వారా రైతులు పండించిన పంటలను శుభ్రం చేసుకుని మార్కెట్లకు పంపడానికి ఉపయోగపడతాయన్నారు.
పథకాన్ని రక్షించినారు. తర్వాత సింగనమలలోని కలెక్షన్ సెంటర్, ఉద్యాన శాఖ అమలు చేస్తున్నటువంటి కలెక్షన్ సెంటర్ను విజిట్ చేయడం జరిగిందనమాట. ఎఫ్పిఓ ద్వారా ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేయడం జరిగింది. ఉద్యాన రైతులు వివిధ పండ్ల తోటలను, పూల తోటలను, మరి కూరగాయలను సాగు చేస్తున్నారు. ఇందులో ముఖ్యంగా ఫామ్ పాండ్స్, మరి పోస్ట్ హార్వెస్ట్ మేనేజ్మెంట్, కోత అనంతరం అవసరమయ్యే ఇన్ఫ్రాస్ట్రక్చర్, ప్యాక్ హౌసెస్, మరి ఎఫ్పిఓలకు అవసరమయ్యే కలెక్షన్ సెంటర్స్, మరి కోల్డ్ రూమ్స్ మనము రైతులకు సబ్సిడీ ద్వారా ఇవ్వడం జరుగుతుందన్నమాట. ఇంకా ఎవరైనా ఎఫ్పిఓలు, రైతు ఉత్పత్తిదారుల సంఘాలు ఎవరైనా ఉంటే కూడా మన ఉద్యాన శాఖ అధికారుల ద్వారా అప్రోచ్ అయ్యి దరఖాస్తు చేసుకొని మనం శాంక్షన్ పొంది మరి కట్టించుకోవచ్చు అనమాట. దీనికి 75% మనకు 11-25 లక్షలు మనకు సబ్సిడీ వస్తుందన్నమాట. ఇటువంటి పథకాలను రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం కూడా బాగా ఎంకరేజ్ చేస్తుందన్నమాట.
ఆచార్య ఎన్జీ రంగా వ్యవసాయ పరిశోధనా కేంద్రం ఆధ్వర్యంలో కడపలోని ప్రాంతీయ వ్యవసాయ పరిశోధనా కేంద్రంలో కిసాన్ మేళా నిర్వహించారు. విశ్వవిద్యాలయం ఆధ్వర్యంలో అభివృద్ధి చేసిన కొత్త రంగం వంగడాలపై రైతులకు అవగాహన కల్పించడంతో పాటు వ్యవసాయంలో ఉపయోగించే వివిధ రకాల సాంకేతిక పరిజ్ఞానాన్ని రైతులకు వివరించారు. మారుతున్న వాతావరణ పరిస్థితులకు అనుగుణంగా కొత్త రకం వంగడాల వినియోగం ద్వారా అధిక దిగుబడిని సాధించవచ్చని విశ్వవిద్యాలయం పరిశోధనా విభాగం డైరెక్టర్ ప్రశాంతి అన్నారు. రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా 6 ప్రాంతీయ మండలాల్లో కూడా ఇదే తరహాలో కిసాన్ మేళా కార్యక్రమాలు నిర్వహిస్తున్నట్లు తెలియజేశారు.
వివిధ పంటల్లోని రకాలని అలాగే సాంకేతిక పరిజ్ఞానాన్ని వారికి చూపించడం కోసం ముఖ్య ఉద్దేశంగా ఈరోజు ఈ జిల్లాలో కిసాన్ మేళాను మనం జరుపుకుంటున్నాము. ఇది రైతు సోదరులకు అలాగే పాలిటెక్నిక్ విద్యార్థులకి ఇలా యువత అందరికీ కూడా ఎంతో ఉపయోగకరంగా ఉంటుంది. ఈ ప్రాంతానికి వచ్చి వారు ఏ టెక్నాలజీస్ ఉన్నాయని తెలుసుకొని అలాగే ఇక్కడ భూసార పరీక్ష జరుగుతుంది. అలాగే బయో ఫర్టిలైజర్స్ కూడా వృద్ధి చేసే మనకి ల్యాబ్ ఉంది. అలాగే వివిధ విత్తనాల సేకరిస్తున్నాము. వివిధ విత్తనాలు రైతుల నుంచి సేకరించడం అలాగే బ్రీడర్ సీడ్ ఉత్పత్తి ఎలా జరుగుతుంది ఇవన్నీ కూడా రైతు సోదరులు ఈ పరిశోధనా స్థానానికి వచ్చి చూసి వారు వివిధ అంశాల మీద కూడా నేర్చుకునే దానికి అవకాశం ఉంటుంది. కాబట్టి ఈ పరిశోధనా స్థానంలో మనం ఈరోజు కిసాన్ మేళాను జరుపుకుంటున్నాము.
వార్తల్లో ఇప్పుడు ఒక స్వల్ప విరామం.
త్వరగా కానీ గురు, ప్లీజ్ త్వరగా. ఇంకో మ్యాచ్ ఏదైనా ఉందా? అలాంటిదే అనుకో గురు, బ్యాంక్ వెళ్ళాలి తాతగారిని తీసుకుని.
అవును కదా, వయసు అయిపోయినప్పుడు అప్పుడప్పుడు సహాయం కావాలి మరి.
కానీ బ్యాంకింగ్ కాదు.
అయినా గానీ ఆర్బీఐ ఉంటుంది, సీనియర్ సిటిజన్స్ అందరికంటే ముందని. మీరు 70 ఏళ్లు నిండిన వారైనా మీరు బ్యాంకుకి వెళ్ళలేకపోయినా బ్యాంకు మీ దగ్గరికి వస్తుంది అవసరమైన సేవలతో, అది యోగ్యమైన ధరలకి.
సీనియర్ అందరికన్నా ముందు. ఆర్బీఐ అంటుంది, విషయాలు తెలుసుకోండి, జాగరూకంగా ఉండండి.
తిరిగి స్వాగతం. ఉన్నత విద్యాశాఖపై క్యాంపు కార్యాలయంలో ముఖ్యమంత్రి వైఎస్ జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి ఈ రోజు సమీక్ష నిర్వహించారు. విదేశాల్లో విద్యార్థులకు అందిస్తున్న కోర్సులను పరిశీలించి వాటిని కూడా ఇక్కడ విద్యార్థులకు అందుబాటులోకి తీసుకురావాలని ముఖ్యమంత్రి ఉన్నతాధికారులకు సూచించారు. ఉన్నత విద్యాశాఖలో ఖాళీగా ఉన్న పోస్టుల భర్తీని చేపట్టాలని, ట్రిపుల్-ఐటీలో నియామకాలను సత్వరమే చేపట్టాలని సూచించారు. ప్రైవేట్ బీఈడీ కాలేజీల్లో బోధన వసతులు తీసికట్టుగా ఉన్నాయన్న అంశంపై ప్రస్తావన రాగా ఆయా కళాశాలల్లో బోధన సిబ్బంది, వసతి సౌకర్యాలతో పాటు విద్యార్థుల హాజరును సైతం ప్రమాణంగా తీసుకుని ఆయా కాలేజీలపై ఒక నిర్ణయానికి రావాలని ముఖ్యమంత్రి దిశానిర్దేశం చేశారు. రైతులకు మేలు చేసేలా రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం ధాన్యం కొనుగోలు విధానాన్ని తీసుకువచ్చిందని రాష్ట్ర పౌర సరఫరాల శాఖ మంత్రి కారుమూరి వెంకట నాగేశ్వరరావు అన్నారు. విజయవాడలో ఈ రోజు ఆయన మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతూ గత టీడీపీ ప్రభుత్వ హయాంలో కంటే జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి ప్రభుత్వ హయాంలో అధికంగా ధాన్యం కొనుగోలు చేస్తున్నామని పేర్కొన్నారు. 3.5 ఏళ్లలో 2,88,00,000 మెట్రిక్ టన్నుల ధాన్యాన్ని కొనుగోలు చేసినట్లు తెలియజేశారు. అదే చంద్రబాబు హయాంలో 5 ఏళ్లలో కేవలం 2,25,00,000 మెట్రిక్ టన్నుల ధాన్యాన్ని మాత్రమే కొనుగోలు చేశారని తెలిపారు. రైతులకు ఎలాంటి నష్టం కలగకుండా నేరుగా ప్రభుత్వం ధాన్యం కొనుగోలు చేస్తోందని, దళారీ వ్యవస్థని పూర్తిగా నిర్మూలించిందని, ధాన్యం నగదును నేరుగా రైతుల ఖాతాల్లో జమ చేస్తున్నట్లు మంత్రి తెలియజేశారు.
3.5 ఏళ్లలో సేకరించిన ధాన్యం 2,88,00,000 మెట్రిక్ టన్నులు. 2,88,00,000 మెట్రిక్ టన్నులు అంటే ఎంత తేడా ఉందో చూడండి. 3.5 సంవత్సరాల్లోనే 54,000 కోట్ల రూపాయలు. ఏదైతే ఆర్బీకే సెంటర్లు పెట్టారో ఆర్బీకే ద్వారా ప్రభుత్వమే ధాన్యాన్ని కళ్ళాల్లోంచి సేకరించి మిల్లర్ దగ్గర వేబిడ్జికి కాకుండా మధ్యలో వేబిడ్జిలోనే కాటా వేసి అక్కడి నుంచి రైతు పార్టీ విడిపోయే విధంగా, ఇంకా రైతుకి మిల్లర్కి మధ్య దళారికి సంబంధం లేకుండా అక్కడి నుంచి మిల్లర్కి వెళ్ళేటట్టు ధాన్యాన్ని అక్కడ కస్టోడీ ఆఫీసర్ రిసీవ్ చేసుకుని వాళ్ళకి హ్యాండ్ ఓవర్ చేసేటట్టు, ఏదైతే అమౌంట్ ఉందో డైరెక్ట్ రైతు అకౌంట్లో పడేటట్లు చేస్తే తర్వాత చూసి మాకు ఈ సిస్టమే కావాలి, మాకు జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి గారు మాకు ప్రత్యేకంగా మా కోసం ఆలోచించి ఈ తీసుకున్న నిర్ణయం చాలా బాగుంది, ఎకరానికి 8,000 రూపాయలు మేము లబ్ధి చేకూరింది, మాకు ఎక్స్ట్రా ఎకరానికి 8,000 రూపాయలు ఎక్కువ రావటం అంటే మాటలో కాదు ఇది.
శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లా ఆముదాల వలస మండలం చీమల వలస గ్రామంలో జరిగిన గడప గడపకు మన ప్రభుత్వం కార్యక్రమంలో శాసనసభాపతి తమ్మినేని సీతారాం పాల్గొన్నారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా స్థానిక సమస్యలపై ప్రజలతో చర్చించారు. ప్రభుత్వ సంక్షేమ పథకాలు అందుతున్న తీరును అడిగి తెలుసుకున్నారు. ప్రజా సమస్యల పరిష్కారానికి గడప గడపకు మన ప్రభుత్వం ఎంతగానో తోడ్పడుతుందని స్పీకర్ తమ్మినేని అన్నారు.
అలాగే ఈ మధ్య మీరు ఏమైనా హాస్పిటల్కి వెళ్ళారా?
హాస్పిటల్ 25,650 రూపాయలు ఆరోగ్యశ్రీలో జగన్ గారికి అన్ని కలిస్తే 46,340 రూపాయలు మనకి జగన్ గారి సంక్షేమ
ఈ నెల 22న శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లాలోని శ్రీకాకుళం టెక్కలి కేంద్రంగా కానిస్టేబుల్ పోస్టులకు సంబంధించి రాష్ట్ర స్థాయి పోలీస్ రిక్రూట్మెంట్ బోర్డు ఆధ్వర్యంలో జిల్లా వ్యాప్తంగా నిర్వహించే కానిస్టేబుల్ ప్రిలిమినరీ పరీక్షా కేంద్రాల వద్ద కట్టుదిట్టమైన బందోబస్తు ఇతర ఏర్పాట్లు ఇప్పటికే పూర్తి చేసినట్లు జిల్లా ఎస్పీ జిఆర్ రాధిక తెలియజేశారు. ఈ ఉదయం ఎచ్చెర్లలో ఆమె మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతూ ఆదివారం ఉదయం 10 గంటల నుంచి మధ్యాహ్నం 1 గంట వరకు నిర్వహించే పోలీస్ కానిస్టేబుల్ నియామక ప్రిలిమినరీ రాత పరీక్షకు జిల్లాలో మొత్తం 72 సెంటర్లు ఏర్పాటు చేసినట్లు తెలియజేశారు. ఉదయం 9 గంటల నుంచి సెంటర్లకు అభ్యర్థులను అనుమతిస్తామని 10 గంటలకి 1 నిమిషం దాటిన అభ్యర్థులను ఎట్టి పరిస్థితుల్లో అనుమతించబోమని ఆమె వెల్లడించారు.
శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లా వ్యాప్తంగా 72 సెంటర్స్లో ఈ పరీక్ష జరగబోతోంది. దీనికి సంబంధించి మనకి జిల్లా వ్యాప్తంగా 23,735 క్యాండిడేట్స్ అపేర్ అవుతున్నారు. మేల్ క్యాండిడేట్స్ 18,151, ఫిమేల్ క్యాండిడేట్స్ 5,584 మంది. వీళ్ళు మొత్తం జిల్లా వ్యాప్తంగా 2 రీజనల్ సెంటర్స్లో సెంటర్స్ దాదాపు 72 సెంటర్స్లో ఈ ఎగ్జామ్స్ రాయడం జరుగుతుందండి. వీటికి సంబంధించి ఆల్రెడీ మీటింగ్ పెట్టుకోవడం జరిగింది సెంటర్ సూపరింటెండెంట్స్ అందరితో కూడా. వీళ్ళతో పాటు మొబైల్ ఫోన్స్ని కానీ, స్మార్ట్ గ్యాడ్జెట్స్ని కానీ, స్మార్ట్ వాచెస్ని కానీ, క్యాలిక్యులేటర్స్ కానీ, బ్లూటూత్ కానీ ఇలాంటివి ఏవి కూడా క్యారీ చేయడానికి వీల్లేదు. ఈ ఆటో యూనియన్ వాళ్ళతో మాట్లాడి ఆ ఏరియాస్లో ఆటోస్ని కూడా మనం అరేంజ్ చేయడం జరిగింది. ఫోన్స్, స్మార్ట్ వాచెస్, స్మార్ట్ గ్యాడ్జెట్స్ ఎటువంటి పరిస్థితుల్లో కూడా అలో చేయము. ఏవైనా అవకతవకలకి కానీ, మాల్ ప్రాక్టీసెస్కి కానీ పాల్పడినట్లయితే ఈ ఒక్క పరీక్షే కాదండి, ఫ్యూచర్లో ఎటువంటి ప్రభుత్వ పరీక్షలకు కూడా అపియర్ కాకుండా అయిపోతారు, ఎలిజిబిలిటీ కోల్పోతారు.
నాణ్యమైన మెరుగైన విద్యుత్ సరఫరా చేసేందుకు ప్రభుత్వం ప్రత్యేక చర్యలు తీసుకుంటోందని శ్రీకాకుళం జిల్లా తూర్పు ప్రాంత విద్యుత్ పంపిణీ సంస్థ సూపరింటెండెంట్ ఇంజనీర్ దైవప్రసాద్ తెలియజేశారు. విద్యుత్ ఛార్జీల పెంపు ప్రతిపాదనపై ఈ రోజు నుంచి ప్రభుత్వం ప్రజా అభిప్రాయ సేకరణ చేపట్టినట్లు తెలిపారు. జిల్లా నుంచి సుమారు 56 మంది అభిప్రాయ సేకరణలో పాల్గొన్నారని తెలియజేశారు. విద్యుత్ ఛార్జీల పెంపుపై అభిప్రాయాలు చెప్పాలి అనుకునేవారు ఈ నెల 21 వరకు జరగనున్న వర్చువల్ వీడియో కాన్ఫరెన్స్ లో పాల్గొని నిర్భయంగా వారి అభిప్రాయాలను వ్యక్తం చేయాలని ఎస్ఈ దైవప్రసాద్ కోరారు.
ప్రజాభిప్రాయ సేకరణ వర్చువల్ మోడల్లో ఈరోజు, రేపు, ఎల్లుండు చేయడం జరుగుతుందండి. దీనికి విశాఖపట్నం నుంచి మొత్తం 5 జిల్లాల్లో, మొత్తం రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్న అన్ని జిల్లాల్లోనూ ప్రతి డివిజన్ కార్యాలయాలు కూడా ఈ వర్చువల్ మోడల్లో మనము ఈ వీడియో కాన్ఫరెన్స్లో ప్రజలకి కానీ, అబ్జెక్టర్స్ కానీ వాళ్ళకి వాళ్ళ వాదనలు వినిపించుకోవటానికి వారికి అవకాశం కల్పించబడింది. సో ఎవరైనా విద్యుత్ టారిఫ్ అంటే 23-24 సంవత్సరంలో విద్యుత్ టారిఫ్ ప్రతిపాదనల మీద వారికి ఏమైనా అభ్యంతరాలు ఉంటే వాటిని నేరుగా ఈ కాన్ఫరెన్స్లో పాల్గొని వారి యొక్క అభ్యంతరాలు తెలియపరచుకోవడానికి ఈ అవకాశాన్ని వినియోగించుకోవాల్సిందిగా కోరుచున్నాం. సుమారుగా 58 మంది వరకు కూడా 5 జిల్లాల్లో ఉన్నారు. అదేవిధంగా అన్ని జిల్లాల నుంచి కూడా వినియోగదారులు కానీ, అభ్యంతరాలు తెలియపరిచే వాళ్ళు కూడా ఈ రోజు వచ్చినా, డైరెక్ట్గా వచ్చినా కూడా ఇక్కడ తీసుకుని వారు కల్పించే అవకాశం కూడా జరుగుతుందండి. ముందుగానే ఇవ్వక్కర్లేదు. ఈ రోజు వచ్చినా, రేపు వచ్చినా, ఎల్లుండి వచ్చినా కూడా వారిని కూడా వారు మనం పంపిస్తే పేర్లు అవి వారిని కూడా వారు అభ్యంతరాలు కూడా తీసుకుంటారు.
భారతీయ జనతా పార్టీ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్ర కార్యవర్గ సమావేశాలు ఈ నెల 22, 23 తేదీల్లో పశ్చిమ గోదావరి జిల్లా భీమవరంలో నిర్వహిస్తున్నట్లు ఆ పార్టీ రాష్ట్ర కార్యదర్శి భూపతిరాజు శ్రీనివాస వర్మ తెలియజేశారు. భీమవరంలో ఈ రోజు ఆయన మీడియాతో మాట్లాడుతూ 2 రోజుల పాటు జరిగే ఈ సమావేశాల్లో 4 కేంద్ర మంత్రులతో పాటు జాతీయ నాయకులు, రాష్ట్రానికి సంబంధించి 400 ప్రతినిధులు పాల్గొంటారని చెప్పారు. రాష్ట్రంలో పార్టీని సంస్థాగతంగా బలోపేతం చేసే పలు అంశాలపై చర్చించనున్నట్లు ఆయన తెలియజేశారు.
ఈ నెల 23, 24 తారీఖుల్లో భీమవరంలో పెద్ద ఎత్తున నిర్వహించడానికి జిల్లా పార్టీ ఆధ్వర్యంలో సన్నాహం చేస్తూ ఉన్నాము. ఏదైతే ఈ నెల 16, 17 తారీఖుల్లో ఢిల్లీలో జరిగినటువంటి జాతీయ కార్యవర్గ సమావేశంలో ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాష్ట్ర కార్యవర్గ సమావేశాలు భీమవరంలో పెట్టాలని నిర్ణయం చేయడం జరిగింది. ఈ సమావేశాల్లో పలు కీలకమైనటువంటి నిర్ణయాలు, ఇవాళ ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ రాజకీయాల్లో ఉన్నటువంటి అనేక ప్రశ్నలకు సమాధానం చెప్పేటువంటి ఆలోచనలో రాష్ట్ర భారతీయ జనతా పార్టీ కొన్ని నిర్ణయాలు చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. అదేవిధంగా ఏదైతే ఎన్నికల సంవత్సరం, రాబోయేటువంటి సంవత్సరం ఎన్నికల కాలం, కొన్ని కీలకమైనటువంటి నిర్ణయాలు ఈ సమావేశాల్లో తీసుకోవడం జరుగుతుంది. అదేవిధంగా 4 కేంద్ర మంత్రులు, పార్టీ అఖిల భారత నాయకులు, రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్నటువంటి అనేక మంది సీనియర్ నాయకులు, పార్లమెంట్ సభ్యులు, మాజీ పార్లమెంట్ సభ్యులు, అనేక మంది 26 జిల్లాల నుండి దాదాపు 400 మంది ప్రతినిధులు ఈ సమావేశాలకి రావడం జరుగుతుంది. కాబట్టి పెద్ద ఎత్తున నిర్వహించేటువంటి సమావేశాలు కార్యకర్తలు అందరూ కూడా ఒక పండుగ వాతావరణంలో చేయడానికి సన్నద్ధమయ్యారు.
ప్రజాకవి తాత్వికవేత్త యోగి వేమన జయంతి సందర్భంగా ముఖ్యమంత్రి జగన్మోహన్ రెడ్డి ఘనంగా నివాళులర్పించారు. తాడేపల్లిలోని క్యాంపు కార్యాలయంలో వేమన చిత్రపటానికి పుష్పాంజలి ఘటించారు. ఈ కార్యక్రమంలో ఇంధన, అటవీ, పర్యావరణ, భూగర్భ గనుల శాఖ మంత్రి పెద్దిరెడ్డి రామచంద్రారెడ్డి పాల్గొన్నారు. కాగా ఆ మహాకవికి రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వం సముచిత గౌరవం కల్పించింది. యోగి వేమన జయంతిని రాష్ట్ర వేడుకగా ప్రతి సంవత్సరం జనవరి 19న అధికారికంగా నిర్వహించాలని గత నెలలో జీవో నెంబర్ 164ను విడుదల చేసింది. దీంతో ప్రతి ఏటా జనవరి 19న వేమన జయంతి వేడుకలు రాష్ట్ర వ్యాప్తంగా నిర్వహించనున్నారు. వార్తలు ఇప్పుడు ఒక స్వల్ప విరామం.
మీ బ్యాంకు చెల్లింపులు అన్ని ఇంటర్నెట్ బ్యాంకింగ్, మొబైల్ బ్యాంకింగ్, యూపీఐ, భీమ్ యాప్ ద్వారా చెల్లించండి. అంతేకాదు మీ లావాదేవీలను మీ సురక్షిత కంప్యూటర్ నుండి గానీ, మొబైల్ నుండి గానీ మాత్రమే చేయండి. ఎల్లప్పుడూ డిజిటల్ సురక్షిత లావాదేవీలను చేయండి. అజ్ఞాత వ్యక్తుల నుండి మీ మొబైల్లో వచ్చే ఆర్థిక లావాదేవీలకు సంబంధించిన ఎటువంటి సూచనలకు మీరు స్పందించకండి. జారీ చేయవారు నాబార్డు ప్రాంతీయ కార్యాలయం, ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్.
తిరిగి స్వాగతం. స్వాతంత్ర్యం అనంతరం భారత్ తొలిసారిగా పెద్ద కలలను సాకారం చేసే దిశగా ముందుకు దూసుకుపోతోందని ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ అభివర్ణించారు. అందుకు దేశంలో నలుచెరుగులా రోజురోజుకు చోటు చేసుకుంటున్న ఆధునిక సాంకేతికత ఫలాలే నిదర్శనమని ప్రధాని ఉద్ఘాటించారు. ఈ రోజు సాయంత్రం ముంబైలో 38,800 కోట్ల రూపాయల విలువైన పలు అభివృద్ది కార్యక్రమాలకు ఆయన శంకుస్థాపనలు, ప్రారంభోత్సవాలు చేసి జాతికి అంకితం చేశారు. ముంబై మెట్రో మార్గం, మెట్రో గ్రిడ్ ను ప్రారంభించి అందులో ప్రయాణించారు. 17,200 కోట్ల రూపాయలతో నిర్మించనున్న 7 మురుగునీటి శుద్ది ప్లాంట్లతో పాటు ముంబైలో 6,100 కోట్ల రూపాయలతో 400 కిలోమీటర్ల రోడ్ల శంకుస్థాపన చేశారు. వీటితో పాటు పలు అభివృద్ది పనులకు ప్రధాని శ్రీకారం చుట్టారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా ఏర్పాటు చేసిన బహిరంగ సభలో ప్రధాని మాట్లాడుతూ భారత్ అన్ని రంగాల్లోనూ తన సామర్థ్యాన్ని సక్రమంగా వినియోగించే స్థాయికి చేరిందన్నారు. ప్రపంచ దేశాలన్నీ మనపై అపార విశ్వాసాన్ని కనబరుస్తున్నాయని, భారత్ వైపే చూస్తున్నాయని ప్రధాని మోదీ తెలియజేశారు.
सड़कों में सुधार का बहुत बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट हो और बाला साहब ठाकरे जी के नाम से आपला दवाखाने की शुरुआत हो, ये मुंबई शहर को बेहतर बनाने में बड़ी भूमिका निभाने वाले हैं। थोड़ी देर पहले मुंबई के स्ट्रीट वेंडर्स को भी पीएम स्वनिधि योजना के तहत बैंक खातों में पैसा पहुंचा है। ऐसे सभी लाभार्थियों को और हर मुंबईकर को मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। भाई और बहनों, आजादी के बाद पहली बार आज भारत बड़े सपने देखने और उन सपनों को पूरा करने का साहस कर रहा है। वरना हमारे यहां तो पिछली सदी का एक लंबा कालखंड सिर्फ और सिर्फ गरीबी की चर्चा करना, दुनिया से मदद मांगना, जैसे तैसे गुजारा करने में ही बीत गया। ये भी आजाद भारत के इतिहास में पहली बार हो रहा है जब दुनिया को भी भारत के बड़े बड़े संकल्पों पर भरोसा है।
ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ కర్ణాటక పర్యటనలో భాగంగా 10,800 కోట్ల రూపాయల విలువైన పలు పనులకు ప్రారంభోత్సవాలతో పాటు శంకుస్థాపనలు చేశారు. అత్యంత కీలకమైన 3 లక్షల ఎకరాలకు సాగునీరు అందించే నారాయణపూర్ ఎడమ కాలువ అభివృద్ది, విస్తరణ, ఆధునీకరణ ప్రాజెక్టును ప్రారంభించారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా యాదగిరి జిల్లాలో నిర్వహించిన కార్యక్రమంలో పాల్గొన్న ప్రధాని మోదీ మాట్లాడుతూ రాబోయే 25 ఏళ్లలో దేశాన్ని మరింత అభివృద్ది పదంలో ముందుకు నడిపించాలనే సంకల్పాన్ని నెరవేర్చడం భారత్ ముందు ఉన్న లక్ష్యమని పేర్కొన్నారు. ఈ అమృత కాలంలో వికసిత భారత నిర్మాణానికి ప్రతి ఒక్కరూ కృషి చేయాలని పిలుపునిచ్చారు. రైతులు, ఉద్యోగులు వారి వారి పనులు సంపూర్ణంగా నిర్వహించినప్పుడే లక్ష్యం సాకారమవుతుందన్నారు. పంటలు బాగా పండినప్పుడు, పరిశ్రమలు మరింత విస్తరించినప్పుడు వికసిత భారత్ సాధ్యమవుతుందన్నారు. ఉత్తర కర్ణాటక అన్ని రంగాల్లోనూ ముందు ఉందని, వికసిత భారత్ లక్ష్యానికి ఇది ఒక చక్కటి ఉదాహరణ అన్నారు.
क्षेत्र के पीछे रहने का कारण क्या है? यहाँ का पिछड़ापन कैसे दूर होगा, इस पर पहले की सरकारों ने न सोचने के लिए समय निकाला, मेहनत करना तो दूर की बात रही। जब सड़क, बिजली और पानी जैसे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर निवेश करने का समय था, तब उस समय जो दल सरकारों में थे, उन दलों ने वोट बैंक की राजनीति को बढ़ावा दिया। इस जाति, उस मत मजहब का वोट, पक्का वोट कैसे बन जाए, हर योजना, हर कार्यक्रम को इसी दायरे में बांध करके रखा। साथियों, हमारी सरकार की प्राथमिकता वोट बैंक नहीं है, हमारी प्राथमिकता है विकास, विकास और विकास।
ప్రధానమంత్రి నరేంద్ర మోదీ కలబుర్గి యాత్రలో 50,000 మంది రైతులకు సాగు హక్కు పత్రాలను లబ్ధిదారులకు అందజేశారు. దీంతో ఏళ్లుగా సాగు హక్కు పత్రాల కోసం ఎదురుచూస్తున్న కలబుర్గి ఆదివాసీలు ప్రధాని మోదీకి కృతజ్ఞతలు తెలియజేశారు. అమితానందాన్ని వ్యక్తం చేశారు. ఈ సందర్భంగా వేదికపై ప్రధాని మోదీ మాట్లాడుతూ గత ప్రభుత్వాలు ఓటు బ్యాంకు కేంద్రంగానే రాజకీయాలు చేశాయని విమర్శించారు. కానీ భారతీయ జనతా పార్టీ నేతృత్వంలోని తమ ప్రభుత్వం ప్రజల ఆశలు, ఆకాంక్షలు నెరవేర్చడమే లక్ష్యంగా రాజకీయాలు చేస్తున్నాయని ఉద్ఘాటించారు. కలబుర్గి ఆదివాసీలు 3 దశాబ్దాలుగా వారు ఆధారపడుతున్న భూములపై హక్కుల కోసం పోరాటం చేసినా గత ప్రభుత్వాలు పట్టించుకోలేదన్నారు.
आज का ये आयोजन इसी समाधान की दिशा में उठाया गया अहम कदम है। 1993 में, यानी 3 दशक पहले इसकी सिफारिश की गई थी, लेकिन उसके बाद सबसे अधिक जिस दल का शासन यहां रहा, उसने सिर्फ वोट बैंक बनाने पर ही ध्यान दिया। इन उपेक्षित परिवारों का जीवन बनाने की उन्होंने कभी नहीं सोची। तांडा में रहने वाले साथियों ने अपने हक के लिए लंबा संघर्ष किया है, अनेक कठिनाइयां झेली हैं, एक बहुत लंबा इंतजार आप सबको करना पड़ा है। लेकिन अब उदासीनता का वो पुराना माहौल भाजपा की सरकार ने बदल दिया है। डबल इंजन सरकार भारत में रहने वाले हर समाज की परंपरा, संस्कृति, खान पान, वेशभूषा को हमारी ताकत मानती है। हम इस ताकत को सहेजने, इसको संरक्षित रखने के बहुत बड़े पक्षधर हैं। सुहाली, लंबानी, लंबाड़ा, लबाना और बाजीगर, जो भी नाम ले, आप सांस्कृतिक रूप से समृद्ध और जीवंत है, देश की शान है, देश की ताकत है। आपका हजारों वर्षों का एक इतिहास है। इस देश के विकास में आपका एक योगदान है। इस धरोहर को भी हमें मिलकर आगे बढ़ाने का प्रयास करना है। हमें सबका साथ लेकर ही सबका विश्वास करना है।
గుజరాత్ అల్లర్లపై బీబీసీలో ప్రసారమైన డాక్యుమెంటరీలో కొన్ని వ్యాఖ్యలు వాస్తవ దూరానికి భారత విదేశాంగ శాఖ అధికార ప్రతినిధి అరిందమ్ బగ్చి స్పష్టం చేశారు. ఈ రోజు విదేశాంగ మంత్రిత్వ శాఖ కార్యాలయంలో మీడియా సమావేశం జరిగింది. గుజరాత్ అల్లర్లలో మృతి చెందిన భారత సంతతి బ్రిటన్ పౌరుల ఉదంతం వెనుక డాక్యుమెంటరీ సృష్టికర్తల కాల్బనికత ఉందన్నారు. అది వారి మానసిక పరిపక్వతకు వదిలేస్తున్నామన్నారు. పాక్లో నెలకొన్న ఆహార సంక్షోభంపై ఆ దేశ ప్రధాని షెహబాజ్ షరీఫ్ వ్యాఖ్యలపై పాత్రికేయులు అడిగిన ప్రశ్నకు స్పందిస్తూ ఇస్లామాబాద్ నుంచి ఇంకా పూర్తి స్పష్టత వస్తేనే తప్ప సరైన నిర్ణయం తీసుకోలేమని అరిందమ్ బగ్చి స్పష్టం చేశారు. ఆస్ట్రేలియాలో దేవాలయాల ధ్వంసంపై ఇరు దేశాలు ఒకరిపై ఒకరు నిందించుకోవటం సరికాదన్నారు. నేపాల్ ప్రధాని భారత్కు రానున్న విషయంపై ఇంకా స్పష్టమైన సమాచారం లేదన్నారు. త్వరలోనే నేపాల్ను ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నామన్నారు. దేశీయ స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ సూచీలు ఈ రోజు నష్టాలతో ముగిశాయి. ఉదయమే ప్రతికూలంగా ప్రారంభమైన మార్కెట్లు ఏ దశలోనూ లాభాల్లోకి రాలేకపోయాయి. దీంతో గత 2 రోజుల వరుస లాభాలకు బ్రేక్ పడింది. ఉదయం 60,920 వద్ద నష్టాలతో ప్రారంభమైన సెన్సెక్స్ చివరకు 187 పాయింట్ల నష్టంతో 60,858 వద్ద స్థిరపడింది. ఇక నిఫ్టీ 18,119 వద్ద ట్రేడింగ్ ప్రారంభించి ఇంటర్డేలో కనిష్టాన్ని నమోదు చేసుకుంది. చివరకు 57 పాయింట్లు నష్టపోయి 18,107 వద్ద ముగిసింది. మార్కెట్లు ముగిసే సమయానికి డాలర్తో పోలిస్తే రూపాయి మారకం విలువ ₹81.32 వద్ద నిలిచింది. ఈ వార్తలు ఇంతటితో సమాప్తం. నమస్కారం.